We are back. It is deadline day. Welcome to the SNS Football Podcast. Deadline day. It is here. The day that this has all been concluding to. The day where we finally see what business clubs are going to finish on for the January transfer window and look into for the rest of the season. Braden will be joining me shortly, as well as a few other guests as well. But at the moment, you've just got me, and luckily for you guys. So we will crack on. So, as we can see down the bottom, we've got some new ones since the last time that we've been on. There's also an awful lot of ones that we haven't got on there. So, I'm sure that will be updated in the foreseeable future. Ainsley Maitland-Niles going to West Brom. Joe Willock also going to Newcastle as well. Two off the top of my head that I've just seen before coming on. So we'll have people on to sort of discuss them deals as well as the transfer business within them clubs. Liverpool have finally got their centre-back, signing Ben Davies on a deal from Championship club Preston North End for, I believe, a fee just under £2 million. And they're also linked with the Schalke Turkish centre-back. I think he's pronounced, Turak, or I'll probably butchered his name, but the Schalke Turkish defender, I think it's Kairak actually. So he potentially could be another one in at the door at Liverpool, but we're going to have to see whether that gets done on the stream because we're only doing 6 or 9 tonight, so there may be a few deals that we miss out because of timing, but we're going to try and get as many deals as we can. So, first one that I want to talk about down at the bottom is Patrick Crotone to Valencia on loan. Now, this is quite a weird one because obviously Wolves, I think we mentioned on a previous show, Wolves recalled him from his loan. And I mentioned back then that I think it was a panic from Wolverhampton Wanderers, if I'm being honest. Because they didn't know whether they were going to get the striker over the line. They've now loaned him back out, this time to Spain, not Italy. So it's a weird one, this, because I don't really see a point in why Wolves brought him back other than what I said, which was it was a bit of a panic. They didn't know whether they could get William Jose over the line. And if they couldn't get him over the line, Crotone would come in and I imagine be the first choice. But it's a weird one. I think Wolves at the moment aren't really having a good time of it. I know their fans are pretty unhappy with the management more than the players. And obviously the injury to Raul Jimenez is a massive reason as to why their season has been so derailed. So Crotone has gone. He's gone back to, Valencia on loan. The question is, will we see Crotone back in the Premier League? Personally, I don't see that happening. I could see him getting a permanent move at the end of this year. He still is very young, but the amount of loans that he's been on already, it's quite clear that he's not in Nuno's plans. We move on to a couple down at the bottom. Garner to Nottingham Forest. And another one, Frederick Gilbert to Strasbourg in League One. What can I say? Freddie Gilbert, formerly of Aston Villa, or still of Aston Villa, but he's a Strasbourg player as of the rest of the season. He's gone on loan. Freddie Gilbert, where do I start? The man that plays with his heart on his sleeve, came into the team last season. I think he went back on loan to Sayen when we originally signed him in, I think it was January. But he wouldn't join up with us until last summer. He tried to keep his French club Sayen in the Ligue 1, and unfortunately he was part of the relegation battle, which they failed in. He then joined us last season, come in and did. Personally, I think he did really, really well at right back. He did fantastically well, but unfortunately, he just sort of. He had a few bad performances. And look, most fullbacks do. I think fullback is quite an inconsistent position. You look at players like Luke Shaw, he's found his consistency, but before that, he was very inconsistent. There's plenty of fullbacks in the league that sort of dip in and out of form like wingers. And Gilbert last season, there were some games I remember Everton at home at the start of the season, and he was phenomenal. I think it was Theo Walcott last season. Constantly running at him. I think Moise Kean come on as well, and Gilbert stood up to both challenges and did really well. And he had a fair few good games. His pace was very good, so I think Strasbourg have got a good attacking defender. Very quick. So in terms of recovery runs as well, he can be brilliant for them. And Strasbourg want to cement their place in the league. They're bringing a player who has league experience, so I can only see it as a good thing. And it's quite unfortunate, really, how it's happened at Villa, because we've sort of moved on, and it's quite clear that Dean Smith doesn't really have him in his plans anymore, with Matty Cash coming in and doing so well defensively and attackingly for Villa. I think Cash has been one of our players, if not the player of the season, with Jack Grealish. He's been phenomenal. And then we've got El Mohammadi as well as a second choice right back, which Dean Smith seems to prefer Elmo to Gilbert. So I think it's a good move for Freddie Gilbert, someone that has no bad blood against Aston Villa or Dean Smith. Constantly putting on social media the start of this season that he was still wanting to fight for his place at Villa, and he's a bit disappointed that he hasn't been able to secure that. But I wish him all the best, because he's a fantastic player, and unfortunately, he's like similar to Bjorn Engels. It just hasn't really worked out, and I think he's sort of been took by the transition of Villa this season. And a few other ones at the bottom. We've got Cenk Tosun to Besiktas on loan for the rest of the season from Everton. And we've got Kenny Lala to Olympiacos for 2.5 million. Now, I want to talk a bit about Cenk Tosun. Obviously, a player that Everton signed, I believe, when Sam Allardyce was at the club. If there are any Everton fans, please correct me if I got that wrong. But I think he might have actually played really well under Sam Allardyce. Either way, he just hasn't really worked out at Everton for him. Let's be honest. The resurgence of Dominic Calvert-Lewin has been fantastic, and obviously he's Carlo Ancelotti's first choice striker. Cenk Tosun has just sort of been in Calvert-Lewin's shadow, really, since Calvert-Lewin has had this rise in form. And Cenk Tosun just doesn't seem to get game time. And I think, yet again, it's a good move. And I think club like Everton, who are doing so well this year, and I've been really impressed with, I think this can only be a positive, because I imagine Carlo Ancelotti will not have Cenk Tosun in his plans. And hopefully, I think for Everton, Tosun can find some form in Turkey and maybe get something for him in the summer. Not that it's a good thing trying to get rid of players in that way, but at the end of the day, Everton, they clearly want to push Europe. They could even make a break for the top four this year, the way that Ancelotti's got them playing. So, yeah, Cenk Tosun has gone. He will now be playing in the Super League this season. And hopefully he can find some form back in his home country. We've got another one, just as it comes across the screen, eventually. Sometime today, yeah, Kenny Lala to Olympiacos. So, look, Kenny Lala, a player that was doing fantastic at Strasbourg, where Gilbert has just gone. It looks like Gilbert has replaced Kenny Lala. Kenny Lala had a fantastic season last year. Unfortunately, I don't really think it's worked out for him this year. And I was reading an article saying that he may have fell out with the dressing room and he wanted out, and he's gone to the Greek league. So he's going to be in and around it in Greece with Olympiacos. And obviously Olympiacos have European pedigree, competing in the Europa League and Champions League over the last few seasons. So, yeah, again, I can't really say much about this move because I haven't really seen much of Kenny Lala play, but I know last season he had a cracking season. So Galatasaray not Galatasaray, sorry, what am I on about? Olympiacos have got a really good right wing back or a right back option, and Strasbourg have replaced him by bringing in Freddie Gilbert from Villa. Now, two moves that are hot on the tongues at the moment of the press is Ainsley Maitland-Niles to West Bromwich Albion on loan, I believe, for the rest of the season, and Joe Willock to Newcastle. Now, these are two big, big deals in the context of the relegation battle. Two Arsenal youngsters going to clubs that are struggling this season. Question is, which move is going to work out? Put in the comments down below which move is better for that club. Ainsley Maitland-Niles to West Bromwich Albion or Joe Willock to Newcastle. Now, I'm going to have my say on both transfers, starting off with Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Now, Ainsley Maitland-Niles has been someone that has sort of been in and out of the Arsenal team since Mikel Arteta come to the club. There's been times when Arteta has looked to have really trusted him. There has also been times where Arteta has looked and not so trusted him. And for Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Cedric now seems to be the preferred choice, even when Kieran Tierney is in at left back, whereas Ainsley Maitland-Niles used to be that choice at left back. So he's not going to get game time at Arsenal, unfortunately. And I hate to be harsh, but I don't think he's good enough for Arsenal. And maybe a move to West Brom where he's going to be getting regular football. He's going to hopefully revitalise what has been a shambolic defence this season for West Brom and give him a little bit of a better option in the full-back ranks. I know they've got Kieran Gibbs on the left-hand side, but now they've got Ainsley Maitland-Niles on the right-hand side, who can also play in midfield as well. I think West Brom have signed a really versatile player. A kid that started off his career in central midfield and obviously got reverted back to a right back. So West Brom, I think it's a good signing for West Brom. You know, I heavily criticised them on the last show for their transfer business so far. You know, going abroad for a lot of their transfers, but look, this seems like a really good move. They've got a guy that's got Premier League experience, Premier League proven, and a guy that's only going to get their team better. Is it enough to keep him in the Premier League? No, not for me. But for Arsenal, there's only benefits here because if Ainsley Maitland-Niles has a really good second half of the season, wherever he plays, and he does really well in the West Brom team, if they then didn't want him at the end of the season, they can offload him to obviously a Premier League team for a lot more money. So I think Arsenal. I think he is still in Arteta's plan. So I don't think there's going to be a plan to sell him. I just think it's more a case of him getting football and getting experience first. Because if you look at who Arsenal have got, you know, Hector Bellerin seems to be very popular with Arteta. You've also got Kieran Tierney on the left-hand side. Cedric can cover both sides. So you've got quite a few players ahead of him there. And unfortunately for Ainsley Maitland-Niles, he's just been a part of being sort of put out the team on his form, I guess. Joe Willock to Newcastle. Going to be honest, Joe Willock being the man that he is, whenever I've seen Joe Willock play for Newcastle, hi to Braden. Thanks for joining us, Braden, this evening.
No worries, mate.
You just caught me talking. So I've spoke about most of the transfers below. I've also just had a little bit of a piece on the Ainsley Maitland-Niles to West Bromwich Albion move that seems to be pretty much done, barring a medical in London, you know, in a few hours' time, I believe. And I was just speaking about Joe Willock to Newcastle. Before I sort of give my piece and hand the reins to you, what do you think of this move? And what do you think of the Ainsley Maitland-Niles to move to West Bromwich Albion as well? Two Arsenal youngsters getting Premier League experience.
I think they're both moves which need to happen for the players, if I'm being perfectly honest. Because if we look at Maitland-Niles, we look at Joe Willock. I think, like you mentioned, I think they're both in Arteta's plans, hence why they are only loan moves, but they're not playing enough at the minute. And we can say that for thousands of players, who are young, in top clubs around the world, and they're not playing enough. So I think the Maitland-Niles one is a really weird one because not only was he linked with West Brom, where he's rumoured to be going now, but you look at he was linked with Leicester, he was linked with Southampton. They are two really good clubs, really good loan moves, I think, that he could have got there. Whereas now with West Brom, a little bit of a relegation battle. And we spoke about Lingard in the last stream as well, and how I felt that him going to West Ham rather than Sheffield United is actually a really good deal, because I don't know how well he would do at Sheffield United when he's, around down the bottom. But Joe Willock and Maitland-Niles are difficult ones because, to be honest, I haven't seen a lot of Joe Willock. I know he's been in and out of the team. Maitland-Niles was almost a regular at one point, but has just got off the radar. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I hope they both go through and they get playing, because that's what players need to do. They need to get playing. So yeah, I think they'll both happen. Yeah, once again, sorry, I apologise for being a little bit late. Just had to finish up my dinner a bit quicker. But Morgan, I'll pose a couple of questions to you, which have sort of come in. I'll speak quickly just about Pellistri because it's going across the bottom. I think, it's a valid loan move. He's played 23s football. Get him out playing, nothing wrong with that. Garner to Forest as well, another United player. I don't think it was quite working for him at Watford in terms of game time. A new manager's obviously come in. So obviously he's probably been given the boot, which is a bit of a shame, but oh well. And then to you, Gilbert, you've spoken about it before, along with sort of the likes of Engels and players like that at Villa. Only a loan move. Is there a possibility that he can come back to Villa after this loan move if he plays really well, or do you think he's not getting in this team, ahead of Mings, Konza, House, who plays at the back as well, your fullbacks as well? He's not getting back.
No. I think it's as good as gone. Fortunately for Freddie Gilbert, the weird thing is that the fans rate him as a player. We all rate him as a player. We don't really see what he's done drastically wrong, other than a few poor performances. I remember he had a really poor performance in the last game before Project Restart when we played Leicester and lost 4-0. Now, I remember he had an absolute torrid time against Harvey Barnes for 90 minutes, and we haven't seen him in a Villa shirt since. And it's a weird one because I like Gilbert as a player. He's quick, athletic, good going forward. Defensively, there's question marks there, but he could have got better with development. But then you look at who we've got in the right back ranks, and I know people want to throw in names in there like Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Reece James this season, who have been really, really good and are top players. Matty Cash is easily in the top 3 right backs in the league this year so far. He has been unreal. Like I said earlier on the stream, Matty Cash has been one of our best players this season, if not our best, with Jack Grealish. And the impact that he's had on our team coming in and his general play has been phenomenal. And Gilbert is just never going to get past Matty Cash. And even El Mohammadi, he's still, even though he's getting on a bit, he's a reliable player to bring in the Premier League game. Cash is suspended or injured, Elmo comes in, and there's no real change to how we play, to be honest, because Elmo came in against Burnley and did a fine job. So I think it's a good move for Gilbert back to France. And he proved that he could play in the Premier League. So maybe, we could sell him on to a Premier League side next season if he's still not in Smith's plan. But it only takes an injury to Cash. We could have him back. Mm-hmm. It only takes Cash to get injured or El Mohammadi, and suddenly we're wanting him back. I mean, yes, we've got Kane Kessler-Hayden coming through the ranks, and I think that's another reason why Gilbert's nowhere near the team. But I don't think Dean Smith would want to play Kessler-Hayden this early. I think he'll want to keep him in and around the first team and not let him play yet. So, look, there's definitely a scenario where Gilbert returns to Villa, but in my opinion, I really can't see it happening anytime soon.
Yeah, fair enough. Before we do bring our first guest of the stream on tonight, we do have a little bit of breaking news. 6 minutes ago, Fabrizio Romano, it's the hot topic of January, to be honest. Liverpool and a chase for a centre-half. And we will talk more about this later on. We've got lots more Liverpool fans coming on there. I'm sure they'll be eager to speak about it. But Romano has said 6 minutes ago, Liverpool and Schalke have signed the paperwork for Ozan Kabak. The Turkish centre-back has also signed his contract. Official announcement soon. So not quite a done deal, but all pretty much a done deal. So when that does get announced, it'll become a done deal. But that's breaking news from Fabrizio Romano. Kabak looks like he's Liverpool bound. So we'll bring our guest in now. He tells me he's a retired Man City fan. We'll have to put that to the test in a minute. By the way, if you are watching, you have any questions at all, we're doing a bit of a Q&A through this live stream. So it doesn't have to be football questions. It could be any questions. It could be, what the hell does SNS mean? So please list them in the comments and we will get to them. But we're going to bring our guest on. We have got on from the Devonport End podcast. If you want to go and check that out, it's a Plymouth Argyle podcast. It's on Spotify. We'll put the link in the stream in a bit. But we've got Toby on, a good friend of mine. So we'll add him into the stream now. How are you, mate? How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. Hopefully everything's working all right and you can hear me.
Mate, you're coming through loud and clear for us. I mean, I've spoken to you many a times about coming on, and you said, fortunately, you're a bit of a retired City fan. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I'll back that.
You're fully an Argyle fan now, are you?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, since going to uni, I've realised that, Argyle is the main team, and, City come second, and I don't really care about them. So,
mate, I rate it. I love it. That's what you want to hear.
I've even got my Argyle shirt out.
Oh, look at that. That is fair play. I'm still hoping your Premier League knowledge is still up to scratch. Have you been following the Prem a lot, or has it just been mainly Argyle?
I'm still there. I think it's a lot of Argyle and Cheltenham at the moment, because obviously I'm based in Cheltenham and Gloucester, so it's mainly that. But a lot of my course mates are also Premier League fans. So of course, I've been watching it when we actually able to go to the pubs and that back in like October time. But I've been following it properly still, so it's all good.
Decent, mate. We'll speak about Liverpool. I know you're not a Liverpool fan, but obviously there was the huge injury to Van Dijk. It seemed very unlikely they were going to get a centre back in. I mean, up until about, I'd say, 24 hours ago, it was like, yeah, no, they're not getting one in. They've got one in. Is this now where you look at it and go, they've actually replaced a lot of the injuries they've had? They can actually go on and win the league? Or whose league do you think it is to lose at the minute?
It's City's to lose. They've got the game in hand. They're six. If they win that, they're 6 points ahead, of which they probably will win. So I reckon they will be 6 points ahead. And with the form they're in at the moment, I don't think that signing Kabak is going to make a huge difference for Liverpool.
It's a good point, because Morgan, we'll come to you now. They've been saying all through Sky today, Kabak, and if you look at Schalke's form, it's been horrific. I think they've won their first game in about almost a year now. So he's coming from a Schalke team who haven't won and he's expected to probably start in this Liverpool team and help them win the league. That surely can't help him, can it? Surely.
I don't. It's a weird signing, to be honest. I can understand the Ben Davies one from Preston. I think they're just going to alternate between either Davies or this new Schalke centre back, and then either Henderson or Fabinho. But like Toby alluded to, I really don't see this changing a lot. I think Liverpool have shown way too many frailties at the early part of this season. But then again, we've constantly said throughout this season, different teams are title challengers. Me and you on a pod at the start of the year completely wrote City off, and now they've got a game in hand to go 6 points clear. And, we were saying Tottenham are there for the league, and they look miles off it now. So I think it's just good that Liverpool have bought centre-backs in. They've got players there now. Whether they're going to be good, it's going to be up to Klopp, really, in his system. But then again, Klopp's been the best in the world at picking sort of bargains up, like Wijnaldum from Newcastle getting relegated and turning them into fantastic footballers. So you've got to look at it in that. You've got to look at the signings with that regard of he's clearly going to develop these two players, Davies and Kyprak, into hopefully starting centre backs for Liverpool. But it's difficult to see whether they're going to hit the ground running straight away. But I imagine one of them will play in their next game, whenever that is. Within the Premier League guidelines, I think it has to be a certain amount of days. Be more likely Davies because of him coming over from Schalke. But look, Liverpool just needed centre halves in, and they've got two. So it's up to Klopp now.
It is up to Klopp. It's a loan move, which is that surprising at this time, a loan move, or do you think? I mean, I say it's surprising. A lot of the deals this window have been free transfer loan moves. We haven't seen many big ones. So a loan move for Kabak. We've got a couple. We've got a comment in here from Ben Brown or Brano. Diego Rossi to Reading now looks unlikely. Big L's. I didn't know that. It looked pretty nailed on you were going to get him, but if that's the case, that is a big L for you, mate. I apologise for that one. And we'll just grab up now. That is a Twitter for Toby's podcast, so please do go check it out. Excellent podcast on the Mighty Greens. So if you do want to support a League One club, that's the one you need to support. So that is the link for his Twitter for all the updates on when they go live. Toby, Man City, this window, nothing's really come in. Let's put it that way. Aguero's been injured. Jesus has been in and out of form. Dzeko was linked to come back because there was a huge hoo-ha, I think, at Roma, and he's not happy there. So, did City need to get in a striker, or do they need to look for another one if Aguero does move on in the summer? And would you have wanted Dzeko back at all near that City team?
I think if Aguero does go, then City will obviously bring in someone because they can't. They've always known to have two strikers, so it was like Dzeko and Balotelli were there at the same time, and then Aguero and Jesus. So they will find a partner for Jesus if they need to. But from the Dzeko rumours, I saw that he was linked to United more so than City. But that may have just been my Twitter that I was looking at. But I don't think City would have taken him, if I'm honest, because they haven't really gone with like a target man striker since having Dzeko there. The kind of new style of play with Pep and Aguero and Jesus kind of fits better than a big man up front.
Fair point, mate. It's a fair point you raise. So with City, is it just a striker they need to be looking at, or is it anywhere else on the pitch? De Bruyne is obviously injured at the minute. Obviously, you got rid of David Silva in the summer. So is possibly another creative midfielder needed? Because I don't think you've really replaced David Silva. I know you got Torres in, but he's more of a winger. And also with the injuries to De Bruyne, I think he's had a couple this season. Is that a need for concern, or is there anywhere else on the pitch that you need to be looking at, really?
I think they're pretty solid at the moment, apart from maybe left back. It's kind of an issue, I think, with Mendy, because in the Cheltenham game, I don't know, I think you two probably watched it, but in the Cheltenham game he was really poor. And I know Cancelo's been playing there a bit, but he's not a natural left back. So I don't know what they're going to do, whether they're going to address that or not. But in regards to David Silva, I don't think they need like another creative midfielder because they've got Foden.
Good point.
I think he kind of fits what they really need at the moment.
No, that's a fair point. I don't think with Foden coming in, you definitely don't want to stunt his growth anymore. I think because he had Silva and De Bruyne in front of him, it was hard for him to get into the team, definitely. So we'll move on from City because, like I said, it's gone quiet. There's nothing coming in. United, unfortunately, there's nothing coming in as much as we would have liked. Maybe a couple of signings. We'll talk about an Englishman in Dele Alli. Morgan, will come to you. Tottenham are not willing to get rid of him because they can't find a replacement. Is that a valid reason, considering he's not playing at the minute?
Dele Alli, what a promising player at one stage of his career, and you look at the demise of him. It's quite upsetting from I'm trying not to look at a point of view here. It's quite upsetting from an England point of view because the talent he has is undeniable, but his attitude stinks quite clearly. And we all know what Mourinho's like with his egos. I think he may not be letting him go, maybe to punish him in some sense. I've read a lot of sources to say that Mourinho won't let him go out to pot because of the way he's acting and the way he's disrespected Tottenham, and Levy's fully on board with it. So I think it would be a good move to PSG because obviously the Poch connection, and I think it'd be a new challenge for him. But I can't see Spurs letting him go out there, to be honest. I really can't.
Yeah, fair point. But then, Toby, one of the people that was rumoured to come in and replace Dele Alli at Tottenham was Christian Eriksen. Now, the last couple of weeks, has turned form. He's staying at Inter Milan. If that ever had happened, him coming back to Tottenham, is that a good move? And is it even a good look on the club, having got rid of him a year beforehand?
Oh, you've really put me in the mud here. Good move-wise, I think it would have been an average move for Eriksen. I don't think it would have been great. I don't think it would have been bad. But it's whether or not, if he returned to Tottenham, would he actually play? And I think if he played, he would, be like his average self. I don't think he would have excelled in the team they have at the moment. So I think that would have kind of dampened the mood around the club if they had brought him back in more than anything else, I think.
Fair point. I just think that the whole Eriksen debacle with him coming back to Tottenham just blew my mind, to be honest. When I first seen it, I couldn't really believe what I was reading. Eriksen back to Tottenham a year after he left.
Eriksen forced the move. Yeah. Eriksen didn't want to be there anymore. He forced the move. You saw in that documentary, and I know obviously it isn't the full story, but you see Levy trying to say to him, please stay. And he's like, no, I want a new challenge. And obviously he's revitalised his form. And like Toby said, I think I've said before, if you come back to England with Spurs, I don't see where he fits in that Spurs side. I think Spurs, their midfield is settled, despite them not playing well at the moment, and obviously the brand of football not being great. I think the midfield is one thing that they've got a good balance in with Højbjerg, Sissoko, and on Dembele, and obviously Lo Celso comes in every now and then. I think they've got the right balance in there, and I can't see Eriksen wanting to play Mourinho football. If I'm being totally honest, Eriksen's a flair player that likes to have a lot of the ball in attacking areas, and I think he'd be ultimately starved of that under Mourinho football, especially with Harry Kane as well now dropping back and almost playing like a 10. He's almost playing the Eriksen role. So no, I can't see him. Well, he won't be going back anyway, but he wouldn't have fit into the system, and it would have been a pointless move, to be honest, like Gareth Bale has been.
Yeah, that's the Bale one's interesting because that has gone, I say, really under the radar in terms of, you could call it at the minute a really poor signing, to be honest, because, I don't know how many goals he scored this season, maybe 3. He's been very ineffective. I mean, there was a lot of hype around the signing, but with Eriksen, they brought in Lo Celso permanently almost to replace him as well. So, you don't want to bring back a player you've just replaced, really, do you, at the same time? Maitland-Niles news, Morgan, as we spoke about when I come on. It's weird because there's 2 separate sort of stories that's going on here to do with Maitland-Niles. First one is saying Maitland-Niles has completed his medical ahead of a loan move to West Brom. But then another one says that the situation is fluid. Could there be another club interested, and that the transfer to West Brom is not done yet? Is it West Brom he goes to, Morgan, or is there another club that we don't know of that could nip him right at the end?
I'm going to be honest. I would want to see another club come in and nip him, because I think for his confidence going to West Brom, who, let's be honest here, have been absolutely treacherous. And I don't know whether both of you watched the West Brom Fulham game, but they were absolutely horrendous. I think that's the worst first half performance I've ever seen from a Premier League side. It was shocking. And Ainsley Maitland-Niles, a young player, it's going to be a steep challenge for him. And if you're looking at that sense, it's probably a good move for him. But does he want to be a part of that? Like, he let's be honest here, he is a good player. And going to West Brom, a side that are leaking goals consistently, Arsenal are looking for him to revitalise his confidence. Is he going to revitalise his confidence playing in a West Brom side that are so negative and concede 3 or 4 goals every week somehow through being so negative? So I'd love to see maybe a Southampton come in for him. Walker Peters is very injury prone. They played James Ward-Prowse out there against us, and it's not the same. They don't have the same balance. But Maitland-Niles as well is quite a versatile player. Obviously, he started his career in centre midfield, so whoever he goes to, there's an option to play him anywhere, really. He's quite a versatile player, but I just don't know whether, I think I said it earlier, I don't know whether West Brom would be a right move for him. Yes, in terms of getting football, but in terms of the actual style and the football being played, do you not think it would be more relevant for him to go to a side that plays similar to Arsenal? So when he goes back to Arsenal, he's not, transitioned into the Big Sam way of not even passing the halfway line for 90 minutes.
Good. Exactly the same. I think West Brom is a very, I wouldn't say a poor move because he would play, but I just think along with Lingard and with players that need to get play in, is chucking them in at the deep end the best move. More sort of transfer news, just in general, nothing breaking news. Donny van der Beek, a player we have spoken about numerous times, me and Morgan. Toby, we'll come to you. Romano did say a couple hours ago, Donny van der Beek is not leaving Man United on loan. The club never considered this option. He's 100% staying. I don't know how much you paid attention to Man United, considering you was an old City fan, but Van der Beek is a weird situation, and I've had my say, having seen it firsthand. Morgan's had his say. Do you have a say on what's going on with Van der Beek at Man United, and should he be playing more in that team?
I will say I have only seen him play once this season.
I think everyone has, mate. There's nothing unusual.
Well, yeah, in the Liverpool game, that was the only time where I saw him play. But I think he's been a bit screwed over by United. When how much was it for? Like 40 million odd, I think?
35, 40, something like that,
yeah. Yeah. When you see a club make that type of transfer, you expect I'd say at least 20 appearances from him in a season. And so far, it doesn't even look like he's probably going to hit like 15. So I don't really know what United are thinking. But again, then it's the whole kind of thing about, I think you prefer having McTominay as like a holding midfielder. And then like Pogba and Fred being chosen over Van der Beek doesn't quite make sense to me. But again, I haven't really been watching United much this season, so I don't have a major say in it.
No, mate. Every opinion is valid. When we won't shoot you down for that. We did a long bit on the last stream about him. Like I said, the only thing I'd say is I'd split United midfielders into 3 categories: attacking midfielders, box to box, defensive. For me, you got Bruno as your attacking midfielder. You got Pogba, McTominay and Van der Beek is your box-to-box, and you got Matic and Fred as your defensive midfielders, but you can argue Fred's a box-to-box. And therefore, the only competition Van der Beek should have is McTominay. So how McTominay is still starting over Van der Beek, I will never know. And, we've seen it against Arsenal. We've seen McFred against Arsenal when it didn't work. It hasn't worked against big 6 clubs. So he has to change it. If not, I might rip my hair out watching them 2 play again. But we'll sheer away from Man United before we talk about them for the next hour. We'll talk about Reiss Nelson, because we spoke about Arsenal youngsters going out on loan. Maitland-Niles, Willock. Reiss Nelson is potentially staying at Arsenal. Valencia was linked with him. This is another name that's really gone under the radar because I think he moved to the Bundesliga. I want to say similar time to when Sancho did. I know Nelson was a loan, Sancho was permanent, but I think he went over there and he did relatively well. I don't think he underwhelmed or anything. And yet he's come back to Arsenal and he hasn't really hit the ground running. Like if you look at Smith Rowe now, if you look at Saka when he's come in. So Morgan, we'll come to you first. Reiss Nelson, what do you do with him? I mean, Arsenal clearly are probably going to keep him now, but would you send him out on loan like the other 2?
I think he's part of a pool of young Arsenal players that haven't quite got it at the Premier League level. I look at Eddie Nketiah, Reiss Nelson, Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Probably Ainsley Maitland-Niles is sort of on the fringes of it, more so Premier League. I think like Joe Willock as well, that are just, let's be honest here, they don't really look like they're going to be good enough for Arsenal. I think Smith Rowe and Saka have set them apart so much that Arsenal fans are probably like, do you know what? These 3 or 4 players just aren't good enough for us anymore. If Saka and Smith Rowe can be that good, these guys, they've got to pull the weight. And I think, if we talk about Joe Willock for a second, I think if Joe Willock goes to Newcastle and does well and gets himself a move to Newcastle, because I don't think Arsenal will keep him, I think he'll save his career. I think if he does really, really poor at Newcastle and doesn't really do much, I could see him just fading, to be honest with you. And Reiss Nelson's a weird one because he did so well at Hoffenheim. Arsenal called him back thinking, this is it, he's ready. And it just hasn't worked out that way. And obviously Saka's gone like this, and it almost feels like Nelson's just gone down. Every time I see him play, he's got a lack of confidence. And he just seems so raw. I don't know what you 2 have seen of him, but he just looks so raw. Like every time he gets the ball, he's got an unpredictability. I've always said this with Reiss Nelson, but it's not a good one. It's not a good one in the sense of unpredictable that he's going to do something amazing in a certain scenario. He just gives the ball away too much. I'd have liked to have seen him gone out on loan and get some football. I don't think abroad though, because the Hoffenheim move clearly hasn't worked. So he needs to get Premier League minutes under his belt. And if I was Arsenal, I would be looking to offload him to sort of a bottom 10 side. But I don't think many bottom 10 sides want him because of what they've seen of him.
It's a good point. You mentioned Nketiah there as well. Toby, we'll come to you. You look at Arsenal strikers now. They've got Lacazette. Aubameyang could play up front. I know he's pulled out recently through, I think, personal issues. They have, I don't know how much you've heard of him, but I'm sure, Morgan, you've probably heard of him. But that Balogun, who's another young striker, but Arsenal rave about him. I think he's out of contract in the summer and looks like he's on his way unless he gets more minutes. With the performance Nketiah's been showing, is it not time for him to move on to another club, even if it's on loan for the minute, so this Balogun can come in and challenge for a striker spot? Because I think along with Willock, Nelson, Maitland-Niles, I think you can add Nketiah to that in saying, I don't think he's cut the mustard yet at Arsenal, really, has he?
I can agree with you on that, but I think with the whole thing about Balogun is that he seems to be a lot more raw than Nketiah is at the moment. I think Arsenal were just waiting for Nketiah to click in their first team, and then once he reaches I'd say he probably only needs to perform, I'd say at least 5 more times well, and then he'll be a regular occurrence in their first team, I reckon.
So then with that, Nketiah, does he stay at Arsenal for you, or do you think he needs to go away and play? Because like I said, Lacazette seems to be starting. I know Nketiah come off the bench in the final few minutes against United. Aubameyang could play up front if they've got Odegaard, Martinelli, Smith-Rowe, Willian all in midfield. So does Nketiah stay? Or, well, obviously he's going to stay now, but should he stay, or should he have been looking for possibly a loan move away this window?
I think this window, it would be more beneficial for him to stay. I think he waits out the 6 months until the summer and then reassesses the situation then, because it may hit a turning point for Arsenal where Lacazette and Aubameyang are both playing poor, and they will fall on Nketiah to fill the roles, and then he may get his chance and score, I don't know, say 10 goals in 10 games or something. We don't know. That's the issue with him, because he's such a young and I'd say unaccomplished striker at the moment. So I think it's a good move for him to stay at the moment, but then if something comes up in the summer, I think he may take a grasp and take it.
I think there's got to be, for a club to give away players on loan this year, there has got to be a real incentive of the player individually. Because if you look at squad depth of every Premier League side, you know, Arsenal loaning out a load of youngsters, yes, they're going to get a load of minutes, but Mikel Arteta is going to pull a thin line where if Willock, Maitland-Niles go out on loan, and maybe even Reiss Nelson, we really don't know, there's 3 players that could have potentially come in and made a bit of a difference in the Premier League, and they have had appearances this season. And we've seen how fatal coronavirus has been and injuries have been to teams this year and what state it's put them in. You look at Liverpool, getting rid of Lovren, and suddenly Gomez and Van Dijk get injured and they've got no centre-half. So I think Arsenal, unless there is a ridiculous incentive of, if we don't get these players playing Premier League football regularly, we're going to have to get rid of them, I don't think they'll get rid of them. I agree with Toby about Nketiah. I don't think he's going to go. I think Arsenal want him to prove himself. And we've seen this season that, 1 minute Lacazette is loved by Arsenal fans and the next he's the worst thing since life spread. And the same with Aubameyang as well. Both of them are just so inconsistent. And Nketiah can't really do much worse. So I think keeping him around, especially when Arsenal, it's a bit hit and miss whether they're going to go top 4 this year. It'd be good to just keep Nketiah especially around, and maybe Willock and Maitland-Niles going will be okay, but they definitely can't get rid of all 4 of them. That'd be ridiculous.
Yeah, well, before we move on, if you are watching, please list your comments or questions in the comments. Sorry, we will answer them. Doesn't have to be about football. Could be about anything. What does SNS mean? What's Morgan's favourite chocolate bar? What shampoo does Toby use? It can be anything. So list it in and we'll answer it. But the breaking news at the minute: Joe Willock has completed his loan move to Newcastle from Arsenal. Official confirmation expected shortly. So not quite done deal again, but more breaking news on Joe Willock, who conveniently we were just talking about as well. So No real surprise there, but I guess maybe the only surprise is Newcastle couldn't get in Hamza Chowdhury because he was linked for a long period, and I'm sure we'll speak more about him in a bit. So yeah, Joe Willock apparently agreed to go on loan to Newcastle. Official confirmation expected very shortly. So once that is broken and confirmed, we will say that's a done deal, but not yet. Right, the next sort of news we're going to talk about is two Premier League players I'm going to talk about. First one, Gedson Fernandes, who was on loan at Tottenham, cut short, and he signed on loan now for Galatasaray. Didn't quite hit the ground running at Tottenham, did he, Morgan? He was he was brought in same time as Bruno. I remember Tottenham fans saying, "I can't believe we've got Gedson and you got Bruno, both Fernandes's, but how have we got him?" But I think at that point, Tottenham just needed bodies in, didn't they? With Mourinho just coming in as well, it was it seemed a bit of a weird signing at the time as well. Mourinho going for a youngish player, it didn't seem right, but it hasn't worked out, and he's at Galatasaray. What's your thoughts on that one?
It's quite funny because West Ham were linked with Fernandes as well, and I remember the move was really close before Tottenham hijacked it, and all the West Ham fans seem to the picture of two pictures next to each other of Thomas Soucek and Gelson Fernandes, and they're all saying, we've ended up getting the Czech Vieira and missed out on the Portuguese. I can't even remember what they called him, but it just hasn't worked out. A player that come over from Liga NOS, I guess, with a lot of potential, but he was a weird signing because the time at which he was signed, you look at the midfielders that Tottenham already have, and Tottenham have got like a very physical midfield. You look at Tottenham, even when Mourinho first came in, they've always had a bit of a physicality in the midfield, and I think they need to, the way that they play. You look at Sissoko, Højbjerg especially, and Ndombele, they're all monsters physically. Gelson Fernandes doesn't really fit the mould of that, and I think if you take any of them three out, you miss out an awful lot. And I watched him in the FA Cup game against Marine, and again, he just didn't look like he cared. Similar to Gareth Bale, actually. They both just look very disinterested, and as if to say, like, bloody hell, we're playing against Marine on a Thursday night in the FA Cup. Like, is this how bad it actually is? So I think it's a good move for him to get away. And I can't imagine he'll come back, if I'm being honest. I could see Spurs maybe bringing through Oliver Skipp, who is at Norwich, I believe, at the moment. And obviously Norwich are doing really, really well. I can see them bringing him through the ranks. And I think they've got another holding midfielder as well who played against Marine, who looked, I think his name's White, something White. But he was a cracking player as well. So I think it will more just be a case of them bringing through their youth now. And I can't see Fernandes coming back to Spurs, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, definitely. Another player that's gone to Galatasaray. This one is a permanent deal. DeAndre Yedlin of Newcastle. Toby, we'll come to you. Is this? I mean, DeAndre Yedlin. Even I don't know how much he's played this season for Newcastle, but for Newcastle to be offloading players, the position they're in, with trying to get players in, and they've struggled this window, it has to say something, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's an odd one for me. I'm just looking now, and he's only played in 6 games in the league so far this season for Newcastle, but I think that just shows the struggle they're having with finding the right fit for the team. They clearly are not doing as well as they should. I wouldn't say they're in a relegation battle, but they're not performing as well as they should be. And obviously, people will put that down to a lot of factors, but one of them will have to be the fact that they're conceding goals. They've conceded 34 so far this season, which is a fair amount. But I don't really know what they're thinking by getting rid of Yedlin, if I'm honest.
I mean, he's a steady player, really, isn't he? I don't think he's extravagant, but I don't think he's completely terrible. I mean, Morgan, I'm sure you can correct me in a minute if I'm chatting absolute waffle, but I don't think he's that bad, is he? And I guess Toby, I'll just ask you this question: with the way Newcastle have done this season, obviously they've just beat Everton, which was a massive result. Bruce in or Bruce out? Because I know if I was a Newcastle fan, I know what it'd be.
I don't have an opinion on that at the moment, if I'm honest. I'm really not sure whether I am Bruce in or Bruce out. I know quite a lot of people I think will be Bruce out. I think you included there, Braden, but I'm not. I don't think they're not at a position where they can sack him. I don't think, because they're only underperforming. They're not like in a crisis state at the moment. So I think what they'll probably do is wait it out and see what happens with the last 17 games, and then probably make a decision at the end of the season.
Fair point. I'm pulling off my best Newcastle impression with this shirt on, but Morgan, we'll come to you. I think there was a stat I seen somewhere. I think if Newcastle had have lost to Everton, and let's be honest, it looked likely they were going to before the game in terms of position. I think it was however many games without a win. I think it would have been the worst in the club's history. Would you have sacked Bruce before that game? I mean, obviously they haven't. They've stuck with him and they've won it now. Where do you lie with Newcastle? Because with Newcastle and with their fans, the past few seasons, they haven't really been invested, have they, in terms of players? The net spend has been minimum. So whatever they've brought in, they've had to sell. And then the old fiasco with, funny enough, the money wasn't there for Rafa. But then as soon as Rafa leaves, the money's there for Bruce. And he brings in, St. Maximin and Joe Linton and stuff like that. So this summer, we've spoken about it. Hendrick, Fraser, Lewis, Wilson, all coming in. So Maximin, I think, signed a new 6-year contract there. He got backed with money and with good, decent players. Should they not be doing better? And where do you stand with Bruce? And should he have been sacked by now, or do they keep with him now?
I know quite a lot about Newcastle because, funnily enough, one of my closest mates down here is a mad Newcastle fan. So I know an awful lot. And I think one thing that I will criticise Newcastle fans for is it got to a point where, similar to Villa, there was a mad demise, and Newcastle have been a bit of a yo-yo like Villa, going from the Premier League to the Championship and back up. The thing is that Newcastle fans are still stuck in the position that Villa fans found themselves in a few years ago, in that and Newcastle fans still think that they are a massive club, don't get me wrong, but their expectations are still stuck about 20 years ago, and they still expect the team to be finishing top 4, top 6, pushing Europe. It's not realistic. You have to look at Mike Ashley and what he does. Let's be honest here, he's running that club down until he physically has to let it go. And I think the penny dropped for a lot of Newcastle fans. I think there was some people that applauded what Ashley did. But as soon as they got rid of Rafa the way that they did, the whole Newcastle fan base have turned. And I don't know one single person that is Steve Bruce in. And someone that watched Steve Bruce football for a year and a half when he was at Villa, and even saw people get that angry they threw cabbages at his head when we drew 3-3 to Preston. His brand of football is terrible. But what you've got to think about is they're similar to Spurs. Mourinho and Bruce have a very similar style of football. The difference is Mourinho has fantastic players to do it. Steve Bruce has average players to do it. And you see in that, Newcastle look clueless and void of ideas. You're looking at players that, let's be honest here, are experienced Premier League players. John Joe Shelvey, Hayden's been in the game for quite a few years and he was a youngster at Arsenal. Shaw, Lascelles, and Wilson, Fraser, Lewis. They had a really good transfer window. You've got to look at the bigger picture. And Steve Bruce, yes, he's doing what he should be doing. And I can see what Steve Bruce's point is, because it seems to be a bit of a back and forth between Bruce and the fans, which is what it turned into at Villa, where the fans are saying, Bruce out, terrible football, get out the club. And then he's going, well, I finished last season higher points than Rafa. This season, we're on the same amount of points as Rafa was at this stage. Why are the fans moaning? As soon as you start, trying to be cheeky with the fan base, and a fan base as passionate as Newcastle, you're asking for trouble. And I mean, I just think it's a shambles. And if I'm being personally honest with you, I do think they're in a relegation battle, because I've said before, I think Fulham are starting to pick up. I think Brighton are playing decent football and are starting to pick up. And you look at them teams, there's a vision, there's an idea, there's a way of playing. With Bruce, genuinely, until that Everton game, I saw no philosophy or style whatsoever. They came to Villa Park, and I have never been more comfortable watching 90 minutes of football in my life. Honestly, I think their tactic, or what Steve Bruce told them, was to just lump it up to Andy Carroll and hope it sticks. Because that's what I watched for 90 minutes, and it didn't work.
So it's a fair point. We mentioned Mike Ashley.
You guys want about the Yedlin one? My Newcastle fan mate doesn't want him. What you say? Sorry, mate. My internet is absolutely awful.
Carry on, mate. Carry on.
My Newcastle mate says Yedlin, he doesn't even want him anywhere near the team. Doesn't rate him at all. Way too erratic. Got good pace, but his defending is horrific. I don't know who they bring in at right back, though. I know Manquillo sort of playing a wing back role, because the trademark Steve Bruce move is when things get tough to go to three at the back. So at the moment, he's got Manquillo playing in the right wing back role, and it is weird in the sense that Yedlin is more suited to be a right wing back, but they clearly don't rate him. And in this window, if they're getting rid of him, then he clearly can't be of the quality that they're looking at.
Yeah, I agree. We've got a comment in. I have to read it out because Morgan's in the stream. Will Braden be making the deadline day signing of Team of the Year? Honourable mention Grealish. It may not be today.
Already done.
It may not be today I'll get him done, but he'll be getting done. Morgan, Toby, Morgan spoke about Mike Ashley. We've spoken about, what he's been like at Newcastle. We've spoken about the failed takeover that happened. Would you have liked to have seen that go through, or do you think had it have gone through, it wouldn't have been terrible for the Premier League, because Newcastle, I don't want to say would have bought the league, because we don't know where they would have finished, but they would have been similar to PSG, sort of Man City, Chelsea, and them sort of, all this money comes in, all the big players come in, and it just ruins it. So would you have liked to see that takeover happen or not?
Yeah, well, I don't know what you two feel, but I actually would have liked it, because the kind of speculation it brought when it was almost that done deal that it was happening, and then the speculations that came transfer wise from that just made it fun as a fan. I'm not really fussed in the sense if they go out and spend, say, I don't know, 300 million on players and then win the league. Like, I'm not too bothered, because that happens. And we've seen it with Man City, we've seen it with PSG, like you said. So for me, as kind of like an outside fan of the Premier League, I wouldn't have minded it.
I agree. I said I wouldn't have minded it. However, I know Morgan's, I think, got a different stance to me. I wouldn't have minded it. However, I would have liked to have seen the money pumped in being used on sort of the training facilities, the academy, maybe even the stadium, because I think I think, as a lot of Newcastle fans have said, they're the areas which have been, quite poor at the club, especially the training in the academy. So I would have liked to have seen it happen and the money pumped in there rather than Mbappe, Haaland, Ronaldo, Messi, Van Dijk, De Gea, and all that. I would not like to have seen that. Morgan, what was your take on the Newcastle takeover? I know we have spoken about it again, but just briefly, just remind us of your thoughts and sort of feelings behind it.
I think they got robbed, if I'm being honest. The Premier League and how they've done that situation, I think, is appalling. The way that, look, we've seen how. Let's be real here, right? These owners, this consortium that we're going to take over Newcastle, are triple the worth of Man City's owners. Now, we've seen the financial power that Manchester City have now brought to the Premier League. And let's be real here, from an external point of view, people don't like Man City because of the way that they've done things, because of money and all that situation.
We should have covered your ears up.
I was say, I'm not fussed. Carry on.
They've been there to shot at, and people constantly go, they bought the league, this, that, and the other. But let's be honest here, right? You look at the financial impact that it has. It's took Man City from being a side that was struggling to stay in the Premier League just over a decade ago to being one of the biggest forces in Europe. And I think the Premier League was a situation where they went, hold on a minute, if we let this happen again, you look at the impact that it's had. We don't want that to happen again, because I think the Premier League hate the power that Man City have, because Man City fought off UEFA. Like, let's not forget, Man City went to UEFA and overcome a situation because of their power. Premier League are petrified of Man City, and that's because they let these owners come in, take over. They've seen the impact that it's had now, and they looked at Newcastle and gone, we don't want another Man City. We don't want another club powerful than us. We've let it happen once. We can't let it happen again. And it's a shame, because Newcastle fans have been so drained by Mike Ashley and watching how passionate they are about him. I'd hate it. Like, Villa have the third richest owners in the league. Like, our situation's a lot better, but Newcastle fans are watching terrible football. They've got an owner who has no vision long term, and they've been robbed of a takeover from the Premier League. And you know it's bad when Mike Ashley's taking them to court. You know it's bad. Yeah. And this European Super League that keeps getting mentioned, I really wouldn't be surprised if it happens, because the clubs at the top are getting fed up of things that the Premier League are doing, and the Premier League haven't got the power anymore. City are so much more powerful than the Premier League. And if Newcastle had been a lot more powerful than the Premier League, you're just looking at, let's be honest here, if they let Newcastle do it, they've then got to let everyone else do it. And yes, there are issues with the actual consortium and what they stand for. And I think from a humanities point of view, that was another reason as to why they haven't been allowed to take over. Because I'm just speculating, nothing concrete, but the consortium are of a very dodgy things over the last few decades. But look, I feel sorry for Newcastle, because they are a massive club, and I don't care what anyone says. They are definitely on par with the Villa, maybe even bigger, let's be honest, in terms of their history. And they're a club that are just static, stale, and have no long-term vision whatsoever. And as soon as that takeover didn't get through and Rafa left, the fan base, how vile and toxic it is. At least it would have got a little less toxic if the football is all right and they're getting results. But it has been horrendous. So I don't even blame them, to be honest. I really don't, because it must be a horrible position.
Yeah, just on the whole Rafa situation, Toby, we'll come back to you for this one. Do you find it a bit weird how with Rafa, he did a lot for that club? I mean, they brought him in when, the backs were against the wall. He almost kept them up. Unfortunately, they did go down. And then he kept with them in the championship, won in the league and brought them back up. And then I think he finished, like really highly with the squad he had. Do you not think it was weird at the time how they didn't back him with the money they eventually gave Bruce in Joe Linton, St. Maximin? There's probably others they brought in, but there's 60 million there. Do you not find that weird how they couldn't have given Rafa that money and then he could have stayed? And, who knows what Rafa could have done with the money and with the squad he could have now with Newcastle?
Yeah, to me, it didn't quite make sense. It seemed like Newcastle had kind of found their form again from a couple years back when they were fighting for Champions League places, I think, at one point. And it seemed like Rafa would be able to continue that with them and kind of push them in the right direction. And then Bruce came in and it kind of just stopped completely to like a dead still standpoint, which to me, it really doesn't add up. I think something may have happened in the back room that has caused the fallout somewhere, and that has in turn, I think, caused kind of the spin down for Newcastle.
Yeah, it's a fair point. We're going to add in now the second guest to the stream. Unfortunately for myself, it's a Liverpool fan, so we're going to have to bear with it. He's fresh off of 3 points yesterday and, potentially 2 new signings. Jamie, are you live, mate? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Firstly, how are you, mate? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. You all right?
Yeah, we're all good here. Well, I guess we'll have to start talking about yesterday. I have to say, as much as I didn't watch it, it's a massive win that against West Ham. A team which is, in fantastic form. And then you come out. You've been in a little bit of a sticky patch. I mean, obviously lost to us in the FA Cup as well. I've got to add that in. But you must be pleased with that win, surely.
Yeah, I'm quite pleased with it because obviously we've got the key defenders missing. Van Dijk, we've had him out for a while now, but I think West Ham, they could have gone above us with a win. So it's good to get back up with near the top because we've got Man City coming up. So I'm not too confident going into that one next week. So it was good to pick up some points because I don't think Salah scored for 6 games, which is quite a long time considering how good a player he is. And the fact that Mane got injured as well. I wasn't too positive going into that game. But I think the defenders dealt with Antonio quite well, which was good to see. And now, obviously, got Brighton and Man City in the next week, 2 massive games, which I think could put us back in the title race or knock us out of it. So,
mate. The title race, I think, is as wide open as anything this season. I think there's probably about 8 teams that could probably go for the league this season if they put a run of form together. Toby, we'll come to you because we've just had a comment in. Seeing as you are basically Mr. Argyle in terms of media, Reese has come back again. You've just sent this to me as well. Thoughts on Scott Wootton joining Wigan? You think it's a cracking signing for them? I don't know whether he's being sarcastic. I imagine he might be a little bit. But thoughts on that one? Because, that is breaking news. We won't put it up because I don't think anyone knows much about Scott Wootton or Argyle or Wigan, to be honest. But give us your thoughts on that one.
I think that has benefited Wigan highly. I know he hasn't been in the team recently, but I know he's come on as a sub twice and played kind of a holding midfield role, replacing Forner, which I liked a lot. He pretty much played the best ball I've ever seen by an Argyle player in the Huddersfield game. I know I've likened him to Prime Perlo when chatting about him on the podcast when he's playing that holding role. But I'm not happy from an Argyle standpoint that we've let him go on loan. I think we would have benefited with him staying with the squad. I know he wasn't featuring much, he wasn't starting much, so he probably wanted to leave, which is, I think, is probably the situation that's happened. But I liked him coming off the bench as a holding midfielder, seeing as we've got McLeod out injured at the moment. So I feel like he did add depth for us in the midfield stance, but he probably wanted more first team football.
Fair point. If you are watching the stream, as always, give it a like. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. And any questions you have, put them in the comments. We'll get them answered. So it doesn't have to be football. Like I said, it can be what's Jamie's favourite packet of crisp and what's Morgan's morning routine. You know, well, it's anything here. We can do anything. So a few more questions, Toby, and one answer. You only need one word for this. Where's Niall Canavan gone?
We don't talk about him anymore.
There's your answer. Reese has come back and said Scotty too hotty, wouldn't even fit in the bronze squads we played last night. Unreal. Then we've got another one saying, Reese, mate, you can't beat a bronze team. So there's a little bit of beef going on in the comments. Jamie, Liverpool, centre-backs, 2 of them coming in. Do either of them start against City?
Well, that's the big decision for Klopp to make. I think Phillips has done well recently because he's come in. He's only played a few games, but he's not as young as Reece Williams. So I think he prefers him to Reece Williams. And I think you could start Henderson and Phillips together, but then you miss players in the midfield. And I think against Man City, he's often gone with a strong midfield to press them and win the ball back. And I'm not sure the midfield would do that if you're missing Henderson and Fabinho. So I think he's keen to play Henderson in midfield. So I think we could see one of the new signings definitely starting against City.
Morgan, we'll come to you. We've spoken already about Liverpool's 2 centre-backs. What do you think we can expect from them? I mean, I think I've seen a couple of videos from, I think, Paul Cook, who was the old Wigan manager. And I think I might have seen one from Neil Warnock, I think, talking about the pressing defender that Liverpool have signed, saying, you know, he's a very good player and, you know, I think well worthy of his move. But in terms of him and this Kabak, who, you know, like we said, has been in a bit of a poor team at the minute in Schalke, is either of them, you know, going to hit the ground running, or do you think they'll both take time? And can we expect anything really spectacular of both of them this season? Because let's face it, they're going to have to come in and perform quickly because it's anyone's title, really, isn't it?
I think it's classic Klopp to bring in 2 players that people have not really heard much of and turn them into phenomenal players. Like I said earlier, you know, Jorginho Wijnaldum was getting rinsed by Newcastle fans as, you know, lack of effort. He's renowned at the he's been renowned over the last few years as being one of the most hard-working midfielders in the Premier League. Klopp has an affection and he has a way of playing, and I have no doubt that Liverpool, in the scenario that they're in, would not have signed 2 defenders without doing research on what type of player they are and how they're going to fit the system. And they're 2 players that are quite obviously going to be coming in to play games. And I think it's really smart business from Liverpool, if I'm being honest. The Ben Davies one, you know, only signing him for 2 million. Let's face it, if he turns into a fantastic player, it's a bargain for Liverpool. And even if he isn't the player that they've signed, they can sell him on for a lot more because of him being at Liverpool. And look, at the end of the day, a centre-back is a centre-back. And they've managed to get 2 over the line. So they've got options now with Phillips as well. And it means that they can be a little bit more balanced, you know, because Liverpool aren't the same without Henderson in the midfield. I don't think anyone would dispute that looking at their performances of late. But they've been really impressive against West Ham and Tottenham. I don't think people give them the credit they deserve. I think West Ham, high-flying, Spurs, tough to play against, and ultimately people have just gone, yeah, it's just West Ham and Spurs. But they beat 2 sides that are in the top 6. So look, this Brighton game's massive for them. You know, we've seen what happened with Burnley, and I don't even want to speak about Burnley with what happened with us. But you know, Brighton game's a massive one because they're buzzing off the back of a win against Spurs. And I'd probably say the Brighton game, in essence, is more important than the City game because you need to take it as it comes. And that Brighton game is 3 points. It's got to be. And then you can focus on City because I think there are areas of City that can be exploited. They've got a good back four, City, this season, and I think they've only conceded 13 goals, which is just absolutely ridiculous. But look, I think Liverpool are in a situation now where they've got the defenders in. People need to give Klopp time. He's not a miracle worker. He's not going to make them world class overnight. I feel as though they're going to get better as the season goes on. And I think Liverpool fans are fully understanding of that.
Yeah, definitely. Toby, we'll come to you. I don't know if we mentioned this earlier, but like we said, all throughout January, Liverpool have been searching and searching for a centre-back. Van Dijk basically dead to the world. Injuries to Gomez, Matip. I think Phillips has picked up an injury at some point as well. So I think Williams has been in and out of the team. It hasn't looked like they were ever going to get one. But then 24 hours ago, or possibly less than that, they're now signing two of them. Would you have thought that? Because I certainly didn't. I mean, I know the Davies one come out first, and I thought, well, it's a centre back, but it's not. It's not like a Bundesliga or Premier League or Serie A centre back. So it's one from the Championship. Okay, I would have expected maybe one of them, but now to get this guy from the Bundesliga as well, I didn't really expect one, let alone two.
I can fully second you on that. I was not expecting any, if I'm honest. It just seemed like things for Liverpool had gone a lot worse regarding their defence, and they just kept searching and didn't find anything. But correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the Kabak transfer has been trying to happen for a while now. I think they've been linked with him before at some point. So yeah. Obviously they've kept their interest for him. So I think that's probably where that one's come out from. But again, I really wasn't expecting. Is it Davies from Preston? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really wasn't expecting that because I myself had never heard of him. I think quite a lot of other people probably would have never heard of him. So, yeah, I'm a bit surprised that they've got two. But thinking about it, it does make sense that they've got at least one.
Yeah, definitely. Jamie, before we come on to you about more questions about Liverpool centre halves, a couple more comments in. Good things come in threes. Mbappe 2021 for Liverpool. Wow. We've heard this one before. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But Jamie, we'll come to you now. You've pretty much got two centre backs in. Were Liverpool, in hindsight now, made a mistake in firstly selling Lovren, but then secondly not even replacing him? And do you think now getting two in January, is anyone going to be moved on again in the summer? Because you look at it, you'd have Van Dijk, you'd have Gomez, you'd have Matip, you'd have these two centre halves, you've got Phillips, you've got Williams. That's 7 centre backs. Would anyone else be moved on in the summer? Now you're bringing in these two.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I wasn't sure that we'd sign a centre back, because we've never really just rushed into something like this. And I think we did rush into it. I know we've been watching centre backs for a while now. We sold Lovren in the summer, so I think we did look at options then, but it wasn't really deemed necessary then because Van Dijk he's had such a good injury record. We've had youngsters who can come in just for a few games, but I don't think anyone expected to be in this situation. So obviously in hindsight you say, yeah, should have kept Lovren, but I think he only left because of the lack of game time last season because none of our centre backs got injured. So I think he wanted to leave, and we got some money for him as well. So that's always good, because I don't think Lovren was a great defender. He not good enough to win the title anyway. And I don't think you can rely on centre backs like him week in, week out. But yeah, I think it's good that we signed two young centre backs, because they can't really go wrong, because if they're not good enough or they can't cope with playing in the Premier League, then you can always sell them and get some more money in the summer. But there's no doubt when Van Dijk and Gomez come back, they're going to be the main two starting centre backs. So it'll be interesting to see what Klopp does with them and how he integrates them into the team.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what movement happens in the summer, who plays now, when Van Dijk does resurrect, what happens with who makes the match day squads and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting for Liverpool and centre-backs for the next, well, I guess till the start of next season, really, with injuries coming back and the transfer window in the summer. Couple of comments we've had in. Matt, Let's Go SNS, appreciate the support. If you haven't already, like and subscribe and list your questions in the comments. We will get to them. And Reese has said, yeah, and I'm Vin Diesel, mate. So always a good comment, Matt. Unfortunately, Toby, you do have to love us and leave us. We've appreciated your time on the channel. As we said at the beginning, if you haven't checked out Toby's podcast, it is a Plymouth Argyle podcast. It's over on Spotify. There's his Twitter handle, or if you type in Devonport End podcast on Twitter, it'll be there. It's all the news of when they go live and the link to their Spotify. But Toby, mate, been a pleasure and appreciate you having you on. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been fun. Good little waffle from me for quite a lot of the sections today, but I've enjoyed it.
Mate, always a pleasure. You're always welcome back on. Your Premier League knowledge is still there. You haven't lost it, mate. But keep up the good work on the Argyle front. And if City win the league, I don't want to hear any of this rubbish of you supporting them. All right, we'll cut it there, mate.
No, you can already keep this from me. I will not be celebrating. Well, if they win, I won't say I won't celebrate, but I'll keep it quiet with you.
You better do, mate, especially with the shirt I'm wearing. All right. So, mate, appreciate your time. I suppose good luck with all the uni work as well, and we'll speak to you in a bit.
Appreciate it. See you guys later.
In a bit, mate. So Toby was on, another great guest. Not quite a Premier League fan anymore, but was a part-time one, I suppose. So we'll go off of that. Jamie, with Liverpool, what is your expectations now of this season? Is it still we have to retain the league? Is it we go for the Champions League? Is it obviously you're out of the FA Cup now, unfortunately, but what's a target for Liverpool this season? Is it a double with these two centre backs coming in and Van Dijk coming back? Is it we're going to go for 2 trophies now? What do you think the front is in terms of Liverpool fans? What's their view on this season?
Well, I think we've shown we're good enough without Van Dijk. We played Man City. I think we had Gomez then, but we drew with them and it wasn't too bad. We got on okay, and we had a dip in form recently, but that was only a few games, and we've coped okay. To be in this position without Van Dijk and Gomez and Matip, if you told me at the start of the season that we'd only be, I think it's 7 points maybe, or 7 if they win their game in hand, but 7 points behind Man City, I'd definitely have taken that. So. And I think with the Champions League, a knockout competition, I always believe that we can beat anyone, especially, I know without the crowd at Anfield, it obviously makes a big difference, but we've barely lost a game at Anfield. But I think we lost, 1 to Burnley. And apart from that, we've had an almost perfect record at Anfield. So I'd be a lot more confident in the Champions League, because I think now is a good time to play in the Champions League, because a lot of the top clubs, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Juventus, they haven't been great this season. So I think we've got to go for the Champions League, definitely. Because Man City, I don't think they've got to go for that as well. So it'd be interesting to see if both teams go for a double this season. I think Man City will win the league, but we'll have to see. I think the next week will definitely give us more information about who's going to win the league.
Yeah, I think... Morgan, if you do want to jump in with any questions at any point, please feel free to do so. But I think in terms of Liverpool and the centre-back this January, the reason I think it was so up in the air in terms of whether you're actually going to bring one in is because, let's face it, you've had some bad results this season. You obviously lost to Burnley recently. I know Morgan is very happy with the way Liverpool went in the league. But you also, you drew with West Brom, you've drawn with Newcastle, lost to Southampton. So there's been some poor results. However, you are still third, and you've still got a very good shout of winning the league. So in all, despite them bad results, you're still up there. So do you think that had a little bit of an impact of whether do we actually need a centre back, because we're playing two holding midfielders at centre half and we're still third, fourth?
Yeah, as I said, to be in this position, I wouldn't expect that if you told me at the start of the season to be without these key players. And we signed Thiago, and he barely played at the start. So to bring him in, I know his record hasn't been good in terms of wins, but he's definitely a player who makes a difference, and he's different to our other midfielders. So I'll be interested to see at the end of the season what an impact he has made on the team, because obviously our midfield has always been quite workmanlike. You've got the likes of Milner, Wijnaldum, Henderson. So Thiago's definitely a different player. We've had Naby Keita, but he's never fit. So I think I'm not sure if Wijnaldum's going to go at the end of the season, but maybe. I wouldn't be surprised if Keita left, because we've paid quite a lot of money for him and we haven't really seen the best of him yet. But yeah, with the position Liverpool are in at the moment, I'm quite happy considering the situation. I definitely think we should go for the Premier League. It's definitely still there. If we can beat Man City, we'll be very close to the top. I'm not sure who their game in hand against. I think it's against Everton, which is a tricky game. So you never know. In a couple of weeks, we've got Leicester as well. So, and I think Man City have got quite an easy run of games, so they could have run away with it by then. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, the final question I've sort of got on Liverpool before Morgan, if you have any, you can pose them. You mentioned Wijnaldum, you mentioned Keita could possibly leave, and I think Wijnaldum is all but possibly leaving. I don't think a huge lucrative offer is going to come in to keep him in terms of a new contract offer. Are you, as a Liverpool fan, are you not scared that in this summer or next, you are in need of a really big overhaul? Because if we look at players like Salah, Mane, Firmino, Henderson, Milner, Thiago's 29. If you lose Wijnaldum, if you lose Keita, Van Dijk, he's had his injury, but he, in a year or two, he'll be getting on a bit as well. Are you not scared that Liverpool soon are going to need a really big overhaul? I don't want to say similar to the one United had, because United were coming off really successful period, but they'd also lost the manager as well. So you're not scared for in a year or two you're going to need a huge transfer window, almost like Chelsea, to be honest, except with 5 in, 5 out, because all your players are aging a bit.
Yeah, well, I do trust the recruitment of the club, because the last 5 or 6 years we've made very good signings and a lot of young players have come in, and we've just signed 2 young centre-backs. Joe Gomez I think he's quite young as well. So obviously you've got the front 3. I think they're all the same age, and Van Dijk, same age as well. So I haven't really thought that far in advance, but who knows? Because at one point I thought Klopp might only be here for a couple of years, but I think he signed a new contract recently. So maybe he's going to be here for a while, and I do trust Klopp in terms of signings. We signed players like Jota, who is quite young, and at the moment he's obviously been injured, but he's definitely looked like a very good backup to the front 3. It could even break into it with Firmino. He's good competition for Firmino. So yeah, I think I'm not sure we'll need a massive overhaul, because I think we've got a few players who aren't quite that old yet, and I think Van Dijk could last a while, because I think quite for centre backs it's not too difficult to play until you're 34, 35. So I'm not too worried about that. But I suppose with the front 3, they're known for their running as well. They're pressing high up the pitch. So as they get older, that might be a bit more difficult. So I think with a few more signings in the next couple of years, I don't think it'd be too much of an issue with ageing players.
Definitely. Bit of breaking news. Not a done deal yet, but Jamie, have your ears open for this one. Breaking news, Preston confirmed Ben Davies has completed his transfer to Liverpool, but I don't think there's an official announcement yet. So it's getting ever closer, that one, Ben Davies, and let's face it, it's probably going to be completed. But there's a bit of breaking news for you there, Jamie. I'm sure you'll be loving that one, to be honest. I think we had a comment in. Stephen, nice shirt, Braden. Appreciate it. Surprisingly, the shirt's grown on me. Didn't like it at the beginning, but hey ho. Morgan, do you have any questions you'd like to pose to Jamie about Liverpool, or I guess the Premier League in general?
I've just got I just want to speak about Liverpool for a bit. I think they've shown a lot of mental toughness this year. Let's not forget that, and I'm not mentioning this just to be horrible, but the 7-2, you have to remember that Liverpool, people seem to think that Liverpool had a makeshift back four for that game. That was Liverpool's best back four that played that game. And I think the remarkable thing is that it weren't just the result, it was the manner of it, because it could have been about 12. And let's face it, not many sides this season, when you're 5-2 up against them, you think, oh my God, they could still come back. Like Liverpool, I think what Klopp has done is remarkable, because I was sat there at 5-2 going, they could still beat us. We've got to go and put 3 or 4 in the net here. They could honestly still turn this around. Klopp built a project at Liverpool, and I think the end result of that was to bring the Premier League and the Champions League, which is what they've done. And I think this is now sort of a grace period after that, where they are having a little bit of a difficulty with injuries. And it's going to, for me, Liverpool are going to be in a bit of a transitional period now in the next few years. You mentioned about the clear out.
I was going to say, just to interrupt you there, is it similar to saying, look, when Klopp come in, like you said, he had that project. They've climbed the mountain to get the Champions League. They've then gone higher to win the Premier League. It's now about them staying on top. And as everyone knows, when you're on top, everyone wants to beat you. Do you think that's the case with Liverpool now? They're not struggling to stay on top, because they could win the league again this year. They could even win the Champions League this year still. But do you think if one of them didn't happen, say they finish the season empty-handed, or I don't know, they won one of them, do you think maybe in a year or two they may think, we could be on our way back down the mountain here? Or do you think they're still looking at being at the top? I
think Klopp signing a new contract shows that there's intent for them to stay at the top. I think there's often a disrespect towards Liverpool. What Klopp has done there has been nothing short of remarkable. And I think there's such a disrespect towards them. Like, if any team had the amount of injuries that they'd had and be in the situation that they are in, I guarantee they wouldn't have done as well as Liverpool have. Like, the way that they've utilised their squad and just slotted players like Henderson and Fabinho into centre-back positions. And let's be fair here, looked a lot better than most centre-backs in the league. It's just testament to Klopp, because most players would not go into them positions and just play the way they do under him. Any player that goes into any position in a Klopp team has the same effect. They know what they're doing and they're consistent. You look at a player like James Milner, who, in terms of quality and like his age, he's an experienced player, but he really fits into Klopp's system, because he knows the roles and responsibilities to play in any position, and he'll just go and play there. But I think there's such a disrespect towards Liverpool and the position that they find themselves in, especially after getting whacked by Villa. Like, most teams after a performance like that would have thrown the towel in on the league. And at that point, that was when they started getting their injuries. But I just think there's such a disrespect towards them. Like, Klopp isn't a miracle worker. The guy's had so many injuries to deal with, and Liverpool still find themselves in a position where if they beat Man City and City lose a game in hand, then they're within touching distance again. Like, every team this season is a few injuries away from a crisis. Liverpool have had it, but they're now coming through it. And you have to think to yourself, City haven't had that yet. City have been quite lucky where they haven't had many injuries. And it comes back to the point with the whole injury front of, is it the style of play, or is it just the physical demands of what we're currently in with the climate? And you have to look at City, a possession-based team who are, let's be fair here, quite slow until they actually get into the final third. They haven't had many injuries this year, whereas with Liverpool, you've seen an awful lot of injuries who are high press and play a very expansive way of football that has high physical demands. So the thing that I do resonate with to a certain extent is the fans that are saying, from a neutral's point of view, the reason why Liverpool have got so many injuries is because of Klopp's style of football. But is he really going to change his style of football when Liverpool?
Oh, I think Morgan could be on the ropes here with internet. He might come back in a minute, but we'll wait to see. Hopefully he comes back because we do have some news. Morgan, sorry. Oh, he's just dropped out. Oh dear. Hopefully you can come back on in a minute. If not, we will tell you about this breaking news anyway, because it's just come out. And to me, this is absolutely mind-boggling. Morgan is back. Morgan, before you do continue on your piece, we have breaking news. And to me, I'd love to see your two reaction, because if you saw mine when it popped up on my phone, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. This is coming from Ian Dennis at the BBC, apparently. Newcastle United had agreed a deal with the Turkish defender Ozan Kabak before Liverpool nipped in to sign the defender. Liverpool blew Newcastle out of the water once they registered their interest. Thoughts, please. Someone enlighten me on what has just happened, if this is true.
Didn't want to play Steve Bruce football.
I mean, Jamie, you're competing with the likes of Newcastle. Well, I mean, you've blown them out the water. Could you imagine that?
Well, I'm glad that takeover didn't happen, because I'm sure they'd be the ones outbidding us. So, yeah, I'm not sure what to make of that really. But if we're targeting similar players, then I'm not sure those are the teams we want to be competing with. But at the end of the day, he's not our first choice centre back if we do sign him. So
it's a fair point. I mean, I seen that pop up, and quite frankly, I could not believe what I was reading. I mean, that it says it all, really, doesn't it? It also says Celtic and Newcastle lost their targets. I wonder whether Celtic were after Ben Davies as well. That might have been.
They were. They actually. Yeah. Yeah, Ben Davies was pretty much agreed, and then Liverpool come in and snoop that one as well.
Yeah, I didn't even know that either, but that is unbelievable news. Morgan, you were speaking about Liverpool before network issues occurred. You can pick up where you left off if you want to, mate.
I just think, the disrespect that they get caused or they get given, I think is totally unneeded. And I think it's more a jealousy, to be honest. I think people look at the success that Liverpool have had and they have a few unlucky injuries and everyone thinks, oh my God, Liverpool are terrible. And everyone's very quick to criticise them. But it's the same as Man United. Man United are one injury away in Bruno Fernandes, in my opinion, not being anywhere near the Premier League. Villa are one injury away in Jack Grealish from being bottom end mid-table. So I think the climate that we're in, and with COVID and the amount of injuries, and let's be honest here, these players are playing games every 3 to 4 days now. And you do have to wonder, these players aren't robots. There needs to be a recovery period. And Liverpool it's a shame because, I want Liverpool to push City this season. But I think when City have the depth that they have, I think Liverpool will do really well to push them this year, just because I think the players that Liverpool have managed to get in, it's going to be an embedding process. And I think, like I said before, I think all Liverpool fans understand that. And I think they could go for the Champions League. I really do. I think if Jota gets back fit, which I believe he's back in the next month, what a player he is. I think he was phenomenal before he got injured. He was brilliant at Wolves as well. I think Liverpool could genuinely push for the Champions League because, like mentioned, clubs haven't been great this year, like Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Juve. It's there for the taking, and the Premier League's not even out of the picture. like I've said, the dynamic changes almost every week. And for people to write Liverpool off or write United off, it's madness, really. It's madness.
Yeah, agreed. Reese has come in with another comment and said, FSG, I believe that's the Liverpool owners, he's told me, come in and said, back off Susan Boyle. So if you get that quote, then I rate you highly. It's a great quote from Ted. That he's got a fair point though. They come in and said, "Hang on a minute, we'll take this. Don't worry about this. You leave this to us, and we'll have this one."
I tell you something, Braden. Sorry. You know how earlier we were talking about Newcastle and obviously the issues at Newcastle with Rafa.
Yeah.
I probably should have popped up when Toby was on here as well. But you know, Rafa Benitez he is a control freak, and the reason why that broke down was because he wanted power of the club. He wanted a lot more power than Mike Ashley wanted him to. And the reason why Steve Bruce is staying in the job right now is because realistically, he doesn't want much power. He's just dealing with what's going on the pitch. And Rafa Benitez wanted more than that. So that's where that broke down. And I think, if anything, Newcastle spending the money that they have is almost a middle finger to Rafa Benitez and say, look, if you'd have kept your mouth shut and not said anything, you would have got the players, you would have got the signings. But because he wanted more than that, it ultimately broke down. And like we said earlier, I think Newcastle are in big, big trouble. And if they'd have got a player from Schalke, Kabrak, it would have been a good signing. But when you got Liverpool coming in for you, if there's only one move realistically.
I'm glad you actually mentioned owners, because I was going to ask Jamie now. I know firsthand about my club's owners. You look at Arsenal's owners, Newcastle owners, Liverpool owners as well. I think they're all, in some extent, stiff in their own clubs. I think, speaking to Liverpool fans and hearing what they've had to say, a lot of them haven't really been happy, to be honest, for a long time with the owners. And I think you winning trophies has obviously papered over the cracks, and it would do the same if Man United had the similar success you've recently had. But we're talking about your owners. Do you feel that they are stiffing Klopp a little bit here? Because let's face it, the players you've brought in, you look at when you brought Salah in, 35 million. It's not exactly a world record fee. Thiago, you brought in this summer. You had to sell like Lovren to sort of semi-fund it a little bit. And even then, you're playing a little bit hardball with Munich. I know you got Jota in for, I think, 30 as well. But then you look at the two moves you're doing now. £2 million for Ben Davies, a loan move for Kabak. Do you not feel, with what Klopp has done at Liverpool, he's won the Champions League again for the sixth time for your club. He's won your first ever Premier League title, which no other Liverpool manager has ever managed to do. Do you not feel he is entitled to at least 150 million in one window where he can go and spend that on the players he wants? Because if we do look at Liverpool's squad, I think one of the areas they do lack is their squad depth. Because if you look at their squad, I know Shaqiri's actually played a bit decent now. If you look at Liverpool's bench, where if your normal team's playing, you've got Shaqiri, Origi, Minamino, Curtis Jones, Milner as your squad depth. And I think there's a lot of them players there which possibly need moving on. So do you not feel your board just needs to give Klopp a good amount of money and go, there you go, this is for winning us these trophies, go and get what you want?
Yeah, I think Klopp definitely deserves more, because he's barely had any money to spend. His net spend is just ridiculously low. He's had to sell, obviously Coutinho funded the Van Dijk and Alisson deals. But the thing is, I think we've got such a good first 11 at the moment. It's very difficult to sign a player who's going to sit on the bench, because like the front three, up until very recently, so that you couldn't ever see anyone coming in and replacing either Firmino, Manning or Salah, unless a club like Real Madrid came in for one of them. So I think it's very difficult to get anyone who's good enough for the bench, but because you can't guarantee minutes to any player who comes in. So it is very difficult. But I think the owners, they've never really spent much money unless they've been able to sell players. Because, like you said, we sold Lovren in this summer. We sold Brewster. I think that was quite a lot of money as well.
Yeah.
And if we didn't do that, we certainly wouldn't have bought Thiago or Jota. And I don't know where we'd be if we didn't spend money on players like that, because all the transfers that Klopp's made have been funded. I think he's had one season where he's had quite a bit of money to spend. When he brought in Keita and Fabinho, I think they were like the only two when he didn't have to sell a big player to fund it. So I think they should trust Klopp, because every signing he's made has made a big difference to the squad. I think only recently, maybe Minamino, we haven't really seen much of him yet. But
even still, he was like 8 million, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was quite cheap. So again, you don't really. It's not that bad if he doesn't perform, because he doesn't really have high expectations. He hasn't really proved himself elsewhere yet. But again, we don't know if he's given more of a chance to play week in, week out. Maybe he will turn into a good player.
Yeah, definitely.
Go
on, Morgan.
Sorry, Braden. I think one telling factor with, you look at Liverpool's owners, you look at Arsenal's owners, one thing that you've got to consider, and it's definitely frustrating, but, the FSG, for example, their heart's not only just in Liverpool. And what you've got to think is these business owners, or these owners, see your club as a brand and as a business. And what goes on the pitch is almost secondary at times. And you see it at Arsenal. Stan Kroenke has so much more care about the Rams and what's going on there. And then you look at Arsenal and everything that goes on there just seems secondary. It just seems like,
Look, the Glazers own Tampa Bay in the NFL.
Yeah.
They've signed Tom Brady, who is, I don't know a lot about NFL. I watch it here and there. But he is like one of the greatest to ever play it. They've signed him. That's like the equivalent of signing probably Ronaldo again for United. And they're in the Super Bowl. They're in the final in I don't know how many days' time. So it just shows you, doesn't it? But yeah, carry on, mate. I just want to add that in.
Yeah, no, we're in, the frustrating thing for a lot of the big clubs, like the Big Six, they are run by essentially business owners, because you look at the brand, their brand is a lot bigger globally. So the guys that run your club see you more as a business than an actual football club. And that's what's wrong with football. And that's something that I actively dislike in the game, and I think has become more prominent as the game has gone on. Football seems to be more business orientated now. And, you look at, I don't want to keep mentioning us, but you look at our owners now, they've got no hearts anywhere else. Their hearts are solely dedicated to Aston Villa. And if you look at the elevation that we've had in the space of less than 6 months, recruitment-wise, you can tell that they genuinely care about what's going on at the club. And that's not to say that the Glaziers or FSG don't care about what's going on at Liverpool and Man United, but you'll always be the brand that you are because of your history. And I think these owners ultimately take advantage of that and virtually just cream off the top. And it must be frustrating, because it does seem like with Liverpool, it's always breaking even. It's always making a financial even, where, United, they have gone into a bit of debt to go and sign someone. And obviously we know United have got their issues, which I'm sure Braden will mention, but we're also in a COVID window. Let's be real here. Coronavirus has impacted it massively. And until I saw a sheet with the figures of what some clubs potentially lose on a match day, no wonder clubs are bringing out fifth kits and a ton of training kits just to get some revenue in. Because I tell you what, they lose an awful lot of money on a match day commercially as well. So the ability to sign a player of high profile was never going to be Liverpool's aspiration. And I don't think FSG should be criticised for trying to financially stabilise the club, because I don't think any club's going to be stupid now for the next 2 to 3 years, in my opinion. Look at Chelsea. They've gone out and spent 250 million in a COVID window when, yeah, all right, Roman Abramovich didn't get to spend it the year before, but look at what it's done to them. They've got no value for that money whatsoever. And Klopp isn't that stupid to go and go, we're going to go and get Upamecano this January for 75 million. It's just not going to happen. So I think people need to realise that the football that we all grew up with, I know we're still growing up with it, but the football that we grew up with when we were younger is now a lot different now. And I think the business and the brand side of things ultimately takes primary over the actual transfers, which now seems to be secondary for most big clubs.
Yeah, definitely. Like we mentioned earlier about Liverpool and big signings, they don't happen. I know, obviously, Van Dijk was 75, and I think Alisson was a world record for a keeper, and Van Dijk at the time was world record for a defender. But then people forget you had to sell Coutinho for 140 odd million just to fund them two. So it's not like Liverpool just went out and was like, well, there you go, there's your money, go and get them. They had to sell before they brought in, and what two excellent signings to bring in as well. I mean, they both paid off massively. So, but with Liverpool, Morgan mentioned there a couple of one name, sorry. We've also spoken about the big signings. Liverpool tend to stay away from them. We've obviously heard for a long time about this Mbappe link to Liverpool and how he's an admirer of Liverpool, and I think of Klopp as well. Surely, with the way Liverpool have been acting in this window, there is no way they're going to spend 150, 200 million on Kylian Mbappe. Or do you think that they're being really cheap now to save all that money to go and get him, Jamie? What's your opinion on that?
As much as I'd like it to happen, I just don't think it will ever happen. I just think the amount that PSG bought him for, I think it was around 160 million, and they're obviously going to want to make a profit on that because he's probably the best young player in the world, and I just don't ever see the Liverpool owners paying that, especially now. Maybe if it wasn't the current situation, I could see it happening, but I just, unless we sell one of our key players, but even then, if we sold someone like Salah to Real Madrid, I just don't think that it's going to be able to fund Mbappe coming to Liverpool. And as much as most Liverpool fans would get excited about thinking about it, I just don't think it will ever happen.
Well, I think it's one you're always linked with. Let's put it that way. You're always linked with him. You're always in the news, talk about him. Morgan, I'm aware you have to shoot off, but before you do so, I am hoping I can get this up just to confirm. Right, we have breaking news, but it is the first done deal that we can put on stream. Liverpool have completed the signing of Ben Davies from Preston for around £2 million. The defender has signed a long-term deal. That is confirmed. He signed the contract. The picture's all up. That is a done deal. So, Jamie, in fact, Morgan will come to you before you go. Just give us your last thoughts on that, really. And I will pose one more question to you afterwards as well.
They've got a good player. They've got a player that's obviously got potential. He's got pedigree. He's played over 500 games in the Championship, I believe, coming into sort of the prime of his career. And, you know, even if he isn't, like I said earlier, what they intended him to be in terms of, you know, worthy of Premier League starting, Liverpool, being from Liverpool, you see with Ryan Brewster, it automatically adds 15 to 20 million onto the price tag. So I think not only is it a good playing deal, but I think it's also a good financial deal from Liverpool as well.
Yeah, I think, Jamie, we'll get your thoughts on it in a minute. But Morgan, before you shoot off, this is one I just wanted to speak to you about, this deal. West Brom, a club you've represented, a club you've hated at times as well when you've been speaking to us. they have obviously completed the signing of Okay Yokuşlu, the Turkish midfielder on loan from, I believe, Celta Vigo. Sam Allardyce today has come out and said, I don't want to put too much pressure on him. In the past, Milivojevic had made a massive difference in that position. Now, obviously, Big Sam was in charge of Palace when I think he brought in Benteke, Milivojevic, and, you know, he kept them up then. Do you think, I don't want to say do you think he'll have a similar impact? Because let's face it, Milivojevic has had a very good impact on Crystal Palace. Do you think this is a signing that can be similar to Milivojevic? Or do you just think, like you said last time, I think you mentioned, you don't see this as being a good signing for West Brom?
Yeah, I had a bit of a passionate rant, really, you know, because deep down, West Brom are a club that I have a massive soft spot for. You know, recruitment wise and in terms of their academy, they were probably the best I ever worked with. But, man, the recruitment policy at that club is just an absolute shambles right now in terms of the first team. Signing players that have got no Premier League experience when you need Premier League experience to get you out of that dogfight. This guy that's coming over from Celta Vigo, I don't think he knows what he's got himself into. Because I watched that first half. I watched all of the West Brom Fulham game, and that first half is as worst of a first half performance as I've ever seen in the Premier League. And Villa were shambolic one season, and I think it tops that. I just think why sign players from abroad? What, like in a COVID window as well, that it gives you even more of a reason to shop within the league. And there are so many players out there that Big Sam has worked with that he could have got in, like Milivojevic. He's not even playing at Crystal Palace. So to bring in foreign players that, let's be honest here, are going to be part of a side that are going down, they're not going to want to play in the Championship. Going from top level Spanish football, top level Turkish football to go and play in the EFL Championship on a Tuesday night against Preston. Like, it's just not going to happen. And it's going to be similar to Villa when we went down, where we bought Jordan Vertu, Idrissa Gueye, and we ended up having to get rid of them straight away because they just didn't want to play Championship football. I loved West Brom to carry on as they started. They got in Snodgrass, who I think was a great signing. They should have built from that and got more Premier League quality, because you look at that squad and it's a squad that lacks Premier League quality. And this window, they had to do it to save their season. And you look at Brighton and you look at Newcastle, the two sides above them. There is no way on earth that they're going to finish ahead of them two this season. Not a chance. When you look at the Premier League quality that both of them sides have got, and the experience, there's not a chance for West Brom. And it's a shame, because it's a club I do have a bit of a soft spot for. But if they'd have attacked the window with a bit more menace and got the experience that they needed, Big Sam could have got them out there. But on the evidence of what I saw on the weekend and what I've seen so far this season, they're going to be facing the Championship next year.
Well, I think that's some good thoughts there. Before you go, one final comment we had in, Reece again. If we're going to sign Mbappe, Nike will help fund it. So we'll leave that thought with you there, Morgan. But, mate, I appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming on. Thank you for, joining me throughout this January window, for all the transfer news, the ups and downs, everything. Appreciate your time, and I'll probably speak to you again tomorrow, mate.
No worries. See you later, guys. And as always, up the Villa.
Thanks, mate. See you in a bit. So, Jamie, we had that breaking news of Ben Davies, Liverpool, all confirmed, all done. I think you said your thoughts already, but now your full reaction that he's officially a Liverpool player now.
Yeah, obviously happy that we got a centre back, because it didn't look very hopeful a few days ago, but now the fact that we've definitely got one in is definitely a good thing. And I think he's left-footed as well, which is quite rare. I don't think we've got a left-footed centre-back, but I think he can play left-back as well, so that might be needed in the future. But obviously, as we've mentioned, he's quite young, he's cheap, and we can always sell him on in the summer if he isn't good enough, or maybe even loan him out. But yeah, I'm glad we've got a deal over the line.
Definitely, I think you needed a centre back. That was definitely for sure. So yeah, that's just another sort of update on that. Ben Davies is officially a Liverpool player. Is a done deal. Breaking news from about 5 minutes ago, but Ben Davies is now a Liverpool player. They've got one centre back done. A second one, I'm sure, will be coming in shortly, as we're all aware. We'll talk about the January window at the minute and sort of the deals that have happened so far in it. From my perspective, United fan, Diallo come in, a lot of outgoings, a lot of loan moves. One in particular I really want to see happen and work out well for him is Jesse Lingard. We've spoken about in the past, me and Morgan, we spoke about Lingard. West Ham, obviously, you played them a couple of days ago. I always felt Lingard to West Ham would have benefited him more than him going to Sheffield United or to a club like that. Do you think Lingard can, refine the form that got him into the England squad and, was in that United team when we finished second in the league under Mourinho? Can he find that form again at West Ham? Because people say he is old, and he is a little bit old, but he's only 28. He's not in his mid-30s or anything. He's still got some years ahead of him. So do you think he can find his feet again at West Ham and come back to United and really get a place in the squad?
Yeah, I definitely think he can, because I don't think he's been given a chance. I don't think he's even played a single game in the Premier League this season for Man United. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on there, because we know he was quite important for England a few years ago at the World Cup. He scored some good goals, and he was a goal scorer midfielder who, I think, obviously with Bruno Fernandes coming in, he wasn't really going to get much game time. So I don't think there was any point in him staying. And if this goes well for him, he could maybe sign permanently or move to another Premier League club next season. So I think he can find his form again.
Do you mentioned him going on permanently. How much do you think he'd be looking at for Lingard? He'd be 28, 29 in the summer. If West Ham wanted to keep him on permanently, I think beforehand we said, United fans said this window, if we were going to sell him, you're looking at 10 million, maybe possibly pushing 15. What do you think the fee would be for Lingard if he had a decent, second half of the season and West Ham or another Premier League club wanted to sign him permanently? What fee do you think you're looking at?
Yeah, I think it's obviously hard to say in the current situation because we haven't seen that many transfers or permanent transfers in this window. But yeah, 15 million I think would be a good amount, maybe even 20 million. But as you said, he might be 28, 29. So, and it obviously depends how well he does in the next few months. But yeah, I think 20 million wouldn't be too much for him.
Definitely. Got some news in here from West Brom. Speaking about Maitland-Niles loan move, West Brom just need him to sign the paperwork. So this has come from Sky saying that West Brom still have the upper hand in signing Ainsley Maitland-Niles. So at the minute, it does look like he's West Brom bound and not Leicester or anywhere else. All these English players seem to be on the move. You look at Lingard, you look at all the Arsenal youngsters, you look at many other in the Premier League. Hamza Chowdhury was linked with a move, didn't materialise. Which of these moves that could possibly happen? You look at Willock now, you look at Maitland-Niles, you look at Lingard. Which one do you think could actually be sort of the best loan move for either the player or for the club? Or do you think they're all equally as effective because they need to get out and get playing?
Yeah, I think with Maitland-Niles, he was obviously very important last season. He plays in a number of positions. He played really well in the FA Cup final for Arsenal. And he's young, but he was in the England squad recently. So if he wants to keep there's a lot of competition. So if he wants to keep his place, I think a loan move would definitely benefit him because there's so many. I think his favourite position is right back, or that's where he's been played a lot. So there's a lot of competition at right back for England. So he's one who definitely needs a loan move to get more game time. Who knows, he could play in a different position and make that his position, because the problem is with players like him, when you don't have a position that you play in regularly, no one really knows what you can do. So I think he'd definitely benefit from going to another team on loan.
Definitely, I think the loan move system's coming into play for a lot of the clubs at the minute. We spoke about this earlier. I don't think you were with us at the time, but the saga that went on in this window, which hasn't materialised, and I'm going to be honest, I'm shocked that neither of them has materialised, to be honest, is the Dele Alli saga and the Christian Eriksen saga. Firstly, Eriksen was going to be the player to replace Dele Alli at Tottenham a year after leaving. Who would have thought that? But it's not happening anymore. And then the Dele Alli one I find a little bit more interesting. Tottenham didn't want to let him go because they couldn't find a replacement. Is that a valid argument, considering he's not playing anyway? So would they need to find a replacement for Dele Alli to sell him on?
I think that's just Tottenham being quite stubborn, really, because I don't know why you want to keep Dele Alli if you can, depending on how much money they could get. But I just don't see why they wouldn't sell him. Obviously, he's a very good player, and I think he can be an important player. But for some reason, whether it's his attitude or in training or his relationship with Mourinho, but he isn't really being given many chances. And so he obviously wants to move. But I don't know who's stopping that move, whether it's the club or whether it's the manager. But he's a good player, and I think he could make his way into the England squad again if he finds his form. But he's not going to do that at Tottenham. So he definitely should. I think he should be allowed to move. And if Eriksen returned, I don't see why that wouldn't work for Tottenham. I'm not sure they really need that sort of player. But say against the big teams, they tend to play 5 at the back and only 2 in midfield. So I don't know where someone like Eriksen or Dele Alli would fit in. So yeah, it's a difficult one.
Yeah, the Alli one's difficult, and I think Eriksen scored the winner in the Milan derby, and then all of a sudden Inter seemed like they were going to keep him. So yeah, that was a really weird one, and I think Dele Alli not leaving, I think is quite a big shock, to be honest. We'll talk about just quickly. Where is he? Let's find it. Sami Khedira, linked with Everton, the blue side of Merseyside. He was linked with Everton. I think he was also linked with Tottenham as well at some point. He has left Juventus, though. He's gone to Hertha Berlin. Would you have, a stupid question, would you have liked to seen him play for Everton? I imagine the answer is no. But would you have liked to seen him in the Premier League, possibly at Everton or at Tottenham?
Yeah, he's definitely a good player. We've seen him over the years for Real Madrid and recently Juventus. So it's been good to see him in the Premier League, because we've got a lot of top players at the moment. Like Everton got a good manager in Ancelotti, and they've brought James Rodriguez in, someone who you'd never really think would end up at Everton, but we've got him in the Premier League. So yeah, it would have been nice to see Khedira move, but I think he's gone to the Bundesliga now. So I'm not sure. He hasn't played much recently. He's quite old, so you might only have been good for maybe a year at Everton, and they have got Doucouré and Alan who play in a similar role. So maybe they thought he wasn't needed, but yeah, obviously it'd have been nice to see him in the league.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't mind seeing him, to be fair. I mean, he hadn't been playing football like we said. He has got to move though, so I guess at least he will be playing. We'll go back to talk about Liverpool, but we'll talk about the summer now in terms of transfers. Is there anyone that sticks out to you that Liverpool could go after in the summer? Is there any particular positions you feel Liverpool need to strengthen on? Or do you think it's a case again of see who leaves and then go to your shortlist and replace them? Because do you think any of the front three could possibly be off this summer window?
Yeah, that's always the question every summer, really. Is Salah going to leave? There's always talk that he wants to go to Real Madrid, but nothing ever seems to happen. I don't think they've ever been interested in him, really, or they've definitely not made a bid for Salah. So I'm not sure that any of them are going to leave anytime soon. But the only position that worries me is a backup goalkeeper, because we've seen Adrian, and I don't think he's good enough. But against Atletico Madrid, I think he did knock us out, because if Alisson was in goal for that game, I'm sure we would have gone on to win. So I know we've had Kelleher, who's played as his backup, and he's looked a lot better. But yeah, I don't really think there's any positions that we need to strengthen. We've obviously brought in a left back who's come in if Robertson gets injured. But
Yeah.
again, if Robertson got injured long term, then that might be a worry. But unless we get long term injuries to players, I just don't really know who we could buy in the transfer window, because our starting 11 is so strong.
Would it be then looking to possibly strengthen your bench? And I know you mentioned earlier you don't want to spend huge fees on players that sit on the bench. I mean, take Van der Beek, for example, but I think possibly under Klopp he might have been playing a bit more. So do you not think, obviously you got your front three, you got Jota when he comes back to play on the bench. You've still got Origi, Shaqiri. If any of them move on, do you think it's just restocking your bench with enough quality that if anyone gets injured, they can come in and do a job?
Yeah, because we've got players like Harvey Elliott out on loan, who he's another one for the future, who I'm sure in a few years he definitely be better backup, better than Origi and Minamino. So there's Shaqiri. It was mentioned that he might be leaving, but he's obviously been given more game time now, and I think he's played in midfield a bit as attacking midfield, and I think that suited him a bit better than playing on the wing, because he's got a few assists from midfield, plays some nice passes. So yeah, it depends who leaves. Obviously, if Wijnaldum leaves, we are maybe a bit short in midfield, because Milner's quite old. So then Henderson would be our main pressing midfielder, and we need someone. He always has someone in the midfield who presses, so we'd have. But Fabinho, Henderson, Thiago, I'd be happy with that midfield. But then again, it's just about backup. You've got Curtis Jones, Keita. So if our whole team's fit, I don't think, unless players leave, I don't really think we'll buy any big players in the transfer market.
Fair point. Got a quote here from Ben Davies, obviously just signed for Liverpool. He'll wear the number 28 shirt, and he has said the opportunity that is in front of me is incredible. I'd be silly to not make the most of it and learn off the players. So just a quote there from Liverpool's newest signing. So Summer, you said nowhere really to target. One player we mentioned, but because you've signed two centre-halves now, do you think this puts you out the race of him? I think there's about 8 clubs in Europe who are probably after him, and that's Dayot Upamecano from Leipzig. Kabak's in, you've got Davies in, you've got Van Dijk to come back, you've got Gomez, you've still got Matip, you've still got, Reece Williams and Phillips. Does that put you out the race of Upamecano now, or do you think, you know what, we'll go for him as well? Because, if we move on a couple of our defenders, we will have 4 or 5 really good centre-halves that we can rotate.
I don't think we'll get him now. I just can't see us spending that much money, because we've never really made big signings unless we've desperately needed them. When we signed Van Dijk, we desperately needed a defender because we weren't very good defensively. And since he's come in, he's obviously done a great job, and he's been the main reason for the league title and Champions League. Same with Alisson. We desperately needed a goalkeeper after what Karius did in that Champions League final. And apart from that, I don't think we signed a player over 40 million. Maybe Naby Keita. I think he was quite expensive, but I think he's probably the only signing a big money signing who we've bought when we haven't desperately needed. So I don't think we'll sign any players like Upamecano for that much money.
Yeah, I mean, one player that I'm going to talk about now, and I'm absolutely gutted that this didn't happen in the summer, is Jadon Sancho. There's been a lot of links between him and obviously United, but also Chelsea, Liverpool, Real Madrid, Barcelona. First question, do you think he will end up leaving Dortmund? Because there's rumours that I think Dortmund have lost over 100 million and they're hoping that by selling him they can recoup that. But also, secondly, where do you think he is going? Do you think the likely destination is United, or do you think it is elsewhere, possibly to Spain, to Madrid or Barcelona?
I think he'll definitely end up coming back to England. I can't really see him going to another country. I could see him staying maybe in the Bundesliga because I think they've just sacked their manager, Dortmund, quite recently, and they haven't appointed a new permanent manager yet. So depending on who they get, could decide Sancho's future. But obviously the money that he would have cost in the summer, that probably put clubs off. But I think now with the situation, it could benefit some clubs like Man United, who could definitely bid a lot of money. And if Dortmund need that money, then they're definitely more likely to accept a bid for him.
I hope so, mate, because to be honest, we need a right winger. So I think he fits the bill, to be honest. And to be honest, you could almost call it a bit of a masterclass. You know, you don't pay 120 million for him. You wait a year and you might get him a bit cheaper. So we'll have to wait and see, but I hope that happens. The reason I bring him up, though, is because he was linked with Liverpool. And, you know, I remember at the time I remember last summer, we were saying, I was saying as a United fan, that if Liverpool was to go in for him and try and get him to possibly, you know, replace maybe one of your front three if they left, it was a really, really scary prospect that we didn't want to see happening. Do you think there ever was any real consideration for getting him, or do you just think because Liverpool never do big deals, they were just not going to go for this anyway?
Yeah, at the time, I just thought it was never going to happen because, as I mentioned, we never really spend big money on players unless we desperately need them. But then we went and bought Jota. So after that, obviously, I didn't think it was going to happen. But yeah, it definitely would have been nice to have him. But like I said, it would have been hard to get him in the team because we might have to move players around, and maybe if someone got injured, he'd be playing every week. But I'm not sure he would get in the team ahead of Salah or Mane. You could possibly move one of them in Firmino's position. But although Firmino doesn't score many goals, he's still so important for the team. Like recently, he's been a lot better and he scored a couple of goals. But I think most Liverpool fans you speak to will tell you that Firmino's role is he's definitely underrated. And obviously, the lack of goals might concern some fans, but I've always trusted Klopp, and I don't think there's any point in messing around with that front three when they've been so good. Apart from recently the 5 or 6 games where they struggled, I don't think we've had a bad patch in the last 3 or 4 seasons with those three playing up front. So I don't think there's any need to sign a player like Jadon Sancho at the moment.
No, I think it's a good point, mate, because I don't want you nipping in and getting him instead of us. So if you can keep your beak out of it, that does lovely, mate. We're going to talk now about 2 Real Madrid players, both at the minute contracted to them. First one, Gareth Bale, on loan at Tottenham, like we mentioned earlier, hasn't really worked out. Do you think a permanent move to Tottenham will happen? If not, I don't think he's going to stay at Madrid because he's not flavour of the month there. Where could he go? Because obviously in the past, there's always been links to United. There's always been links to coming back to the Premier League. He's back now. He's not really cutting the mustard that everyone expected him to do. Where is his next move? Because I don't think he's staying at Madrid, really, is he? So is it a permanent move to Tottenham, even though it's not really working out? Or is it elsewhere? And if it is, where? Because you know, I don't think there's many clubs at the minute really going to be going after him or could afford him, to be honest.
No, I think it's very difficult. If he had been playing well at Tottenham this season, I'd say, yeah, Tottenham might sign him and he might have to take a big wage cut to join Tottenham. But I think he started maybe 2 Premier League games, which for a player like him isn't really good enough. And now Kane's injured, we might see a bit more of him, but he hasn't really made an impact on the team. And I think he's just, any game time he is getting is just because of who he is, not really. I don't think he's really deserved to be in the team. And why would you change it when Kane and Son have been playing so well in that attack for Tottenham? I don't know what's going to happen with Gareth Bale, because obviously Real Madrid won't want him. And I don't think a move to China, obviously that could happen, but I just don't see anyone being able to afford his wages. So unless he is willing to reduce I don't really know where he's going to end up. Maybe if he starts to play well, which he could do now, Kane's injured. I think he's only out for a couple of weeks, but if he scores a few goals, he could maybe get some game time at Tottenham, and he could end up there in the future. But I'm not really sure about Gareth Bale.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's one that I guess Tottenham and Real Madrid, I guess, are going to have to find out what they do, I guess, in the end. So, yeah, we'll have to see what happens with Bale. I guess for the second half of the season in the summer, another Real Madrid player, Sergio Ramos, out of contract. Contract talks have been touch and go as to whether he is going to sign a renewal. Liverpool were another club linked with him, but now it's heavily linked with Man United. Do you think he could actually leave Real Madrid, or do you think they will come to some form of an agreement? Because do you think Liverpool ever had a chance of getting him on a free and having him and Van Dijk at the back, or where do you think Ramos could end up? I guess in the summer.
Again, with Ramos, it's a player who every team would love to have, but I just don't see him at Liverpool because I don't think the fans like him. I personally don't like him, and it would be different if he was strongly linked with us, but I don't think that was ever going to happen. I think maybe Man United, I could see that happening, but I don't think there's rumours about him going to PSG, which again that could happen. I think he'll end up coming to some sort of agreement with Real Madrid, but I'm not sure what the issue is there, whether it's money or the length of the contract, because he is quite old. But I think he'll come to an agreement, and he'll probably spend the last few years of his career there.
Yeah. Commenting, do you think Man United need to sign a quality centre-half in the summer? Yes, I do. They need, in my opinion, they need Upamecano, but if not, maybe a Koundé, Konate, something along them lines. You know, a quick centre-half to go alongside Maguire, who's also left-footed, would be perfect because Bailly is always injury-prone. So Bailly and Maguire is our best partnership, but you got to wrap Bailly up in bubble wrap. So if you can get a quick centre-half in who's possibly left-footed, but if not, go and get Upamecano, in my opinion. A transfer that hasn't got a club attached to it, but one that I'm surprised is really quiet is Lionel Messi. He's in the final 6 months of his contract. I don't think he's really wanting to stay at Barcelona, to be honest, but no one's really come in to try and sign him on a pre-contract because, you know, we're at the January window. Clubs are allowed to come and speak to him. Are you a bit like confused why no one's really put a stamper down on him, or do you think he is on the move, or do you think, like always, they'll make up and he'll stay at Barcelona? Because we all know about the fallout we had in the summer. He decided to stay. What lies next for Messi, I guess, is the question.
Again, it's another difficult one because a couple of years ago, if you asked me, I'd say definitely he's going to stay at Barcelona for the rest of his career. But I saw recently the wages that apparently he's on, and that's any club. I don't think any club in the world can afford him if he wants to stay on that much money. And obviously, there's PSG, Man City that they could always come in for him, but his form hasn't been as good as it has been in the last few years. So I'm not sure many clubs will want to risk getting him. And I know Man City and PSG might be able to afford him, but I don't think either of them need him. And again, if PSG, if they sold someone like Mbappe or Neymar, they would need an attacker, but I think they'd go for someone younger, not someone like Messi, who you might only have for a couple of years and it would cost a lot of money. And obviously he could leave for free, but his wages are just ridiculous. So I'm not sure, because I don't think Messi really likes Ronald Koeman. He's played okay, but at Barcelona, obviously, they want to be winning the league every year, winning the Champions League, and I don't think they're going to do either of those this season. They've made some signings, some young players, but they sold Suarez, which I think was a big mistake, and they haven't replaced him with a decent striker. So that was definitely a mistake. And now, obviously, Atletico Madrid, they've been doing very well this season. They look like they're going to go on to win the league. And I'm not sure I can see Barcelona winning the Champions League. And I think Messi will probably want to win a Champions League before he retires because he hasn't done so for a while. But yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen with him. He could just sign another contract. But again, I think Barcelona wouldn't offer him the same amount of money that he's on now because they're obviously in a lot of financial trouble at the moment. But PSG, Man City, they could always just sign him for maybe a year, but could go back to work with Guardiola. That would be interesting, but I'm not sure what's going to happen with him.
Yeah, I think the thing that's tempting me to say Messi could leave is because, let's face it, Barcelona are not top of the Liga and doing really well in, say, the Champions League, are they? They're doing all right in the Champions League, but they're not doing so well in the league. There doesn't seem to have been any form of making up with the board between Messi and the board at Barcelona. So that's what steers me to think that he could still leave. But then, I don't know about you, but for me, there's only 3 teams that can really afford him. And that's, like you mentioned, Man City, PSG. And I think for me, the odd shot is Inter Miami, with David Beckham there. I think they're the only 3 clubs that could really afford him. But I did see somewhere where it said ages ago that if City were going to sign him, it was going to be like a 5-year contract. But I think it was 2 of the years would be at Man City, and the next 3 would be at New York in the MLS. So that's an interesting one. But apart from sort of the 4 teams there, City, PSG, Inter Miami, and New York, who's obviously connected City, I can't see him anywhere else, really.
No, he could always move to America for the last couple of years. He could go to China again. I doubt that's going to happen. But as you said, only a few clubs can afford him. And I'm not sure he'd want to play for many clubs anyway. He could obviously go to Argentina, take a massive wage cut and play back in his home country. But yeah, I'm not sure what he'll do.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. We've got some done deal breaking news. I think this was as expected because Liverpool signed Ben Davies from Preston. I just have to get up the youngster's name that's just signed for Preston because I'll be honest, I have forgotten it. But because Ben Davies has signed for Preston, signed for Liverpool, in return, Sepp van der Berg, Liverpool youngster, centre-half, has signed on loan for Preston. Jamie, just tell me a little bit about Van den Berg. I know you signed him, I want to say in the summer, but it might have been last summer. Young centre-half. I don't think we haven't seen too much of him, or I haven't really, in the league, nor in many cup games. I know he's playing in a couple games. What's the Liverpool fans' opinion on him? Because I'm not sure of his age. Is he 18, 19 or something like that?
He's 19, I think.
Is he?
Yeah.
Rhys Williams has pipped him to, I guess, playing in the first team. Is there a reason behind that? What's the feeling behind Van den Berg?
I think with Van den Berg, obviously, when we got him, I think he was probably 17. He was very young, not much experience. I think he was playing the 2nd division in Holland, but obviously Klopp was something he liked. But he hasn't played. I don't think he's played much first team football at all. But he didn't really impress in many of the friendlies, and I think he got taken off at half-time in one of them. And I don't think he's rated that highly by Liverpool fans. But again, if he goes out on loan, maybe he'll improve and we could use him in the future because we've just brought in 2 young centre-backs. But see where we are at the end of the season, and then we have a choice to make who we keep, who we loan out or sell. But yeah, I think it's a good deal for Preston to get some money as well and get a player on loan. And obviously Liverpool benefit from the transfer.
Yeah, definitely. So what's the theory behind Rhys Williams coming into Liverpool's first team and then Van den Berg not coming in? Is it just down to performances, or is it just down to the fact that Rhys Williams has been in England a lot longer and probably knows the ins and outs of the Premier League maybe a bit better than Van den Berg.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he first decided to play Rhys Williams. I know he's impressed him in training and in the academy. A lot of the staff there rate him highly, so he gave him a chance, and he's played in the Champions League. And apart from a mistake against Man United in the FA Cup, I don't think he's really put a foot wrong, and he's played against some good players in the Champions League, and he got a few clean sheets. So once he was given a chance, I think it was difficult to start playing another youngster instead of him. So yeah, I think he impressed since he's been involved in the first team. So I think that's the only reason why he's been playing ahead of the other youngsters like Van den Berg.
Fair point. Breaking news that we've had, I say not a done deal. It's not, one of them's not officially confirmed, but Romano has all but confirmed it. Maitland-Niles will join West Brom. Willock signs as a Newcastle player, and Reiss Nelson is staying. Arsenal have plans. Work is in progress. So, Arsenal fans, you may want to keep an eye out to see what happens. I guess for the next 2 and a bit hours, see if anything goes on there, because a lot of links with a left back. I know Van Aanholt was one they were looking at to give Tierney a bit of competition. But Jamie, Maitland-Niles, West Brom, Willock, Newcastle, and Reiss Nelson saying, we've spoken about this before, all good loan moves, aren't they, really?
Yeah, again, all of them aren't getting much playing time, and they definitely deserve some. And Arsenal have just started to improve now, so I think Arteta's going to stick with the players that he's been using that have been helping him climb the table. So I think it'll be good for those players to get some game time, because he's still giving young players a chance, like Smith Rowe, Saka. So it'll give those Arsenal players who are going out on loan some hope that in the future they can maybe get some first-team football at Arsenal. And I think all these loan moves are going to help players in terms of playing ability and obviously playing time.
Yeah, definitely. They need to get playing, don't they? Especially to get in the Arsenal team, or just, to progress their career onwards, really, don't they? This window's been, I guess, a bit of a weird one, because due to COVID as well, there hasn't been too many big deals, a lot of free moves, a lot of loan moves. Has there been any deal that's really stood out to you and gone, that's one to look out for, or wasn't expecting that move to go through? Has there been one that stood out to you this window?
Well, one that it wasn't really surprising, but Ozil leaving Arsenal, it obviously gets talked about every transfer window, but I think Arsenal will be glad to finally get rid of him, because I think he's on £350,000 a week, which is a lot for a club like Arsenal when he's not even getting any game time. So, yeah, I'm a bit surprised that he went to Turkey. I think he still could have played at a higher level, but they are fighting for Champions League football, which doesn't look very likely at Arsenal at the moment. So maybe that's a good move for him. But yeah, I think Diego Costa, I don't know what's going to happen with him, but I know he's been released, and there were talks that he might join a Premier League club. I think it said a top 6 club or big club in the Premier League had tried to sign him. So I don't know who he's going to go to, but that'll be interesting to see him back in the Premier League. That would be a big shock if he ended up in the Premier League. I don't know if it was Arsenal. It'd probably be Arsenal who were linked with him, because I can't really see him going to Liverpool, Chelsea or Man United. So yeah, that would be interesting if it did happen.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Diego Costa, because I think it came out today that an unnamed club had offered to sign him. Obviously, don't know who that is. But when we had Chelsea Morgan on, earlier on in the window, we mentioned Diego Costa being a free agent. He said he wouldn't have minded that as a Chelsea fan, him returning. It will be interesting to see where he goes, to be honest, because I don't think you can see him at Liverpool. You won't see him at United, I don't think. I don't think you'll see him at City. I think Chelsea might be the only top 6 club, maybe Arsenal, like you said. So Diego Costa's a really weird one, because you just don't know where he's going to end up. And you think it's an easy deal for any team to make because he's a free agent. There's no club to negotiate with and no money to be paid. It's just his wages. So that's one, like you said, it's one to keep an eye on Diego Costa because you just don't know where he's going to end up. And it's been hot and cold of teams being linked with him, unnamed clubs, named clubs. I think Wolves were linked with him as well. So, yeah, we'll have to see and wait and see what happens with Diego Costa. I'll be honest, Jamie, I think we are all out of transfer news, to be honest, to talk about. We've sort of summed up the previous few days that all the done deals have been going across the bottom throughout the stream. There's been so many. One thing I do want to mention before we finish is Watford have seemed to be signing a couple of legend sons, I want to say. Yeah, they've signed Pochettino's son, and I think it's Bergkamp's son as well. I mean, are they trying to get their regens here or something?
Yeah, I don't know if they've actually looked at their footballing ability or if they've just looked at their surnames. But yeah, I'm not sure about that. But it'll be interesting to see because there's a lot of players who their dads have played and they go on to be good players, but I don't think that they're going to be that good in the Championship. I haven't heard of either of them until they signed, so yeah, I don't really know.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. Yeah, it's been a mad window. I'd say that for something. It always is. There's always moves that happen that you sometimes don't expect. One move we'll finish up on is Bayer Leverkusen as a club, sort of the business they've done. Damari Gray's the latest to go there. They signed Fosu Mensah from Man United. They signed Frimpong from Celtic, another young defender. Is that some good bit of business from Leverkusen? Gray was 2 million. Fosu Mensah was about 2 million. Frimpong, I think, was about 10. So 14 million on 3 players there who are all, young and still good players. What's your take on that from Leverkusen? Because I think that's some excellent business.
Yeah, definitely good business. I think to make quite a few transfers with a limited amount of money, they seem to have got quite a few good players in, and they could challenge for the Champions League places again in Germany. But it'd be interesting to see how they get on. As you said, that not much money, but quite a few good players there who are young and can improve. Could maybe sell them for more money in the future, like they did with Kai Havertz.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we better stay away from Kai Havertz and how he's performed at Chelsea. But I'm sure we'll leave that to possibly a Chelsea fan when they come on maybe later on. But to be honest, I think that will wrap up the stream and wrap up the January transfer window. Jamie, thank you for coming on. I hope you enjoyed your debut on the channel. Appreciate all your thoughts as a Liverpool fan and as a football fan as well. So thanks for coming on, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No worries. We appreciate your time, mate.
Right. See you later.
See you. Cheers, mate. So there we go. Funny enough, just as Jamie leaves, we got breaking news that Southampton have had a bid rejected for Liverpool's Nico Williams. So, Jamie, if you still are floating around or any Liverpool fans, there you go. Bit of news there regarding Nico Williams. Guys, we will end the stream there. We will go for about 2 and 3/4 hours. We've gone through all the news we can do. We've had a couple of guests on. Morgan's been on. But this window, it's been a wacky one. It's been one we didn't know what was going to happen. And, who would have thought it? But before we end the stream, we have got breaking news from the man himself, Fabrizio Romano. And it's about the Man United cult hero that left the club in January, Odion Ighalo. Odion Ighalo will join Saudi Arabian side Al Shabab on a permanent deal confirmed medical schedule after loan expired with Manchester United. So, Don Igalo, we wish you all the best from everyone at Man United. What a servant you were to our club. And yeah, what a hero. So we'll end on that for the January transfer window. But guys, if you have stayed to the end, we do appreciate your support. If you haven't already, please make sure you sub to the channel. We're on the way to 50 subs. We're getting close. But we're not quite there yet. So we're on the road to 50 subs. Make sure you share the videos, you like, subscribe. Put in the comments anything you want to talk about. Do you want the live streams to continue? Because obviously the window is now over. Well, not yet, but in a couple of hours' time it will be over. So please let us know if you want us to carry on with the live streams. Listen to the comments below, and we will read them and get back to them and keep them going. But on the behalf of me and Morgan, we do appreciate your support. This month has been mad in terms of the new amount of subs we've got, the guests we've had on, the different transfers and all the stuff that's happened. So we do appreciate all your support. And yeah, we'll be back with some live streams soon, but they may not be transfer related. So we do appreciate you watching, and we will see you in the next one. Back very, very soon. But thank you guys for watching all throughout January and through the transfer window. We'll definitely do this again in the summer. But yeah, appreciate you for watching, guys, and we will see you later.